Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Philosophy, where we try to better our perceptions of the world through philosophical discussion. So in today's episode, I'm going to be debating non-vegans. I'm going to actually pop over, I think, and join Vegan Gaze, and I think she's with Interest. I don't know if she's with Infraspecies or not, but she's definitely doing some outreach at the minute. So I'm going to go and join her and see how it's going, and hopefully do some good outreach, and then probably go solo in a bit. So later on, more philosophical stuff. So I'll just head on over there. Hiya. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be a real man? Okay. Okay. So you can do. So if let's just. I'm just wondering. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I just want to know why he thinks vegans can't protect their families and provide for them. That's kind of weird. What are you talking about? Like, people, like, there's like so many vegan families. Like, I don't understand. Like, so like, for example, like there's like loaded vegans. Like, there's vegans who are rich as hell, who are providing for their families better than meat eaters. I don't understand. Like, what do you mean by provide for their family? Like, oh,
I think the real way to provide for your family is to take the burden of being what the things I said to be a man, making the decisions that are hard because, you have to, and it's necessary. And that's what I do every day. That's why I go out hunting. I hunt for like rabbits. I hunt deer. I do what I need to do to provide.
But let's say someone's a farmer.
It's good and honest work.
Let's say someone's a farmer, right? They're growing crops for their family. Are they not providing for their family?
I mean, yeah, I think they are on a certain level, but there's different levels to it, right? I would call a farmer probably. I mean,
like,
I think a farmer can
hunting?
provide for his family. I can sell to a farmer, right? I can sell them meat, and I think that way, if they buy the meat from me, it's probably they're providing for the family.
I don't understand, because, like, let's be honest, right? In terms of survival, if you're providing your family food, you're providing your family the exact same. Like, there is nothing about meat that's providing your family with more than if you're providing them with vegetables. In fact, quite the opposite. I would even say, like, if you're providing your family a plant-based diet, you're probably providing them with a healthier means of survival, which means you're providing them a greater amount of utility. Like so, for example, like, do you think that someone that provides their family McDonald's versus someone who provides them, let's say, like a 5-bean chili that's healthily cooked, is providing for their family more than if just because it's got meat in it?
No, I think, and if we're specifically talking about the person, the breadwinner, I'm saying, like, if you're buying like meat from like a commercialized corporate sort of company, I don't think that's permissible. Like, and not because it's a quote unquote bad thing. I don't care if it's a bad thing. I think it's just kind of,
as a Christian, you don't care if it's a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think the problem with it is the fact that you're letting a system support your family as opposed to you supporting your family. So I don't really
Do you not
believe
think
in the
that, like,
system.
I think
believe
that,
in
like,
God.
this is such
I'm
a
a man
weird.
of God, and I'll do what's necessary to
like,
provide
yeah,
for my family.
look, yeah, but what is it like? Like no man's an island. Like Christianity is about cooperation, and pride's
Yes.
a sin. So I don't understand how you could be arguing for this as a Christian. These seem like they seem like contradictory notions. Like the idea of not being able to, like the idea of being a man isn't necessarily about providing for your family. It's about doing the right thing and being fair and just. So I don't see why you would say that let's say someone who goes out and kills someone unnecessarily and takes all of his like stuff. He might be able to provide more to his family, but that wouldn't be right in Christianity. Now, someone who goes and does a hard day's work, makes that money in a fair trade, and then takes that money home to their family, they're providing their family the same as anyone else. And I think this weird thing about hunting, I think that you've idealized hunting to the point in which you think that for some reason that the calories...
I love it.
That, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really care. Like, it's like if you love basketball, man. Like, I don't. That's your.
I'm
like,
not the biggest fan of basketball. I mean,
yeah,
sorry, but
baseball,
I think hunting's like my
basketball,
sport.
rugby, whatever whatever like activity you enjoy, if it involves, let's say, like going out and harming someone else, then that activity would be impermissible.
I wouldn't harm, I wouldn't harm like a friend or anything, But
what
like,
about another
animals,
human?
I mean, like at the end of the day, they're there to be killed in a certain sense.
But why do you think that they are
to
be
cycle,
killed?
right? I need to kill them to survive. I'm gonna have to do what I need to do.
But you don't need to kill them to survive. But you don't need to kill them to survive. That's the point. So like this is the thing. Like the divine. Like if you like look.
I do. What?
But no, you don't. You could eat vegetables.
But listen. Like I think a core component of living a healthy life is being happy. I'm not going to be happy eating like cucumbers. Like, come on.
You don't
like,
have
I
to
need
just
something
eat cucumbers,
that
man. You could,
right? So I need a steak.
So you can have like protein sources. I mean, like, look, like people for hundreds of years have survived on primarily plant-based diets, like thousands of years. Like most of our populations, like the amount of meat that we consume today is it's a new concept. Like people, in terms of agriculture, were very much dependent upon a primarily plant-based diet. Even most meat eaters eat more plants than they do like meat anyway. Like, and you're gonna say that you don't enjoy any plant-based foods. So you don't enjoy like even though the majority, yeah, exactly. So it's like it's not like you can't enjoy your life when you're not eating meat. You can even eat the vegan meats, man. Like it's
yeah, but the problem is I'm not living my life to the fullest when I'm like if I'm being a vegan. And at the end of the day,
what do you mean by living your life to the fullest?
Vegan. Well, I can explain. So you guys are vegans, you're living your life, and that's okay. And people, like, one thing I do get from like a lot of like people when I spread my religion is that, yeah, you can't force us to like be religious, blah blah. So like people are always like telling me like I can't spread my beliefs because it's like it's your beliefs, your opinion, blah blah blah. And that's exactly how I feel about vegans. You guys can't tell me you can't tell other people what to do. I don't understand why you guys feel the need to spread the message. It's your message. Why can't you just live your life?
Well, we do tell people what to do all the time in terms of the law.
But like, what's the point of spreading it? Why do you have to spread the message?
Well, yeah, it's about the law. So like, look, like in terms of our deontological responsibilities to each other, like we can all agree that there are certain actions which are impermissible. So when I say that, don't beat up that man across the street, don't attack the homeless, don't murder women or whatever. Like, I'm not really imposing my views on you. I'm actually trying to stop you. I'm actually trying to stop you imposing your views on others that are within your actions. You're making judgments.
It's still a view, though.
Sorry?
That's still a view. The fact that I shouldn't enforce my belief on others is still a view. So you still would be, but at the end of the day, I do believe we should live in a society in which
there's rational actions and there's irrational actions, and the reality is that individuals need to abide by a system of justice. That's entirely within Christianity. Like the law that the natural law that God has set for us is essentially the law that you should be living your life by, and like I would say that Well, I don't think you do. I think that the natural law that God has set for us leads us to rationally conclude that we shouldn't harm animals.
Well, that's not entirely true because in the Bible it supports
but the Bible's non-literal.
The killing of animals. So,
but the Bible's non-literal.
So I mean, sorry.
But the Bible's non-literal. You're not supposed to read the Bible and go, "Oh, right, these stories actually happened."
Yeah, that's just interpretation. That's an interpretation thing. Like you might interpret it differently, I might interpret it differently.
But my point is, the whole point about interpretation is that there is an underlying concept that we're trying to divest. The concept of good, right and wrong, for example, in the notion of divinity, what does Christ represent is supposed to be like truth, and divinity within man, like the greatest thing that we could possibly be. So when we look at Christ as the measure of the yardstick from which to compare ourselves, then I would say that if we are to act loving as commanded in the Bible, and that we are conceptually bound to this notion of loving others as we love ourselves, I would say that animals, if now because of our increased knowledge we understand that animals are others, animals have experiences that are akin to ours, and our inconsideration of them is irrational.
Yeah. So I guess I think I agree with the definition of what Christ is, but I think it's a lot more broad and ambiguous. So I think my idea of truth is very different from your idea of truth, and my circle of what others is much smaller than what your circle of others is.
Do you think that truth is subjective?
In a real sense? Yeah, let me finish. So in a sense, I don't really even consider people outside of my close circle, close friends and family to be others, which is kind of radical. Like I'm not going to advocate for the death of people outside my family, but truly, the only reason I'm for human rights is because pragmatically we kind of do need human rights.
You haven't read the Bible, have you?
Outside of that, I don't value anyone outside.
You haven't read the Bible, have you? You can't read the Bible and then interpret that it doesn't apply to at least all humans. I mean, that would be absolutely mad.
I mean, I agree, though. I'd agree with that. I'm just saying on a personal level. I can believe in something, but still have personal feelings about things.
I think if you don't, I'm not going to lie. I don't care about your feelings. I don't see why anyone should care about feelings. It's not about feelings. It's about judgments and whether you're making the right judgment. It's about logic. It's about facts.
But logic's contingent upon feelings. So
no, it's not.
Like at the end of the day,
logic's contingent.
No, it
upon,
is. But
how is it contingent? Why is logic contingent on feelings?
Because to have a logical framework, you would need to have set of premises that you deem valuable.
So you think that
the value on those premises would be dependent on your morality.
I completely disagree. I would say that it's necessary for any conceptual framework at all. So that means, for example, do you think that someone could deny the truth of 1 + 1 = 2?
Oh no. Okay, hold on. I'm not saying logic can't exist without feelings, but I'm saying basically for you to choose, because there's many things that are logical. So it would be perfectly logical for me to kill every human being that I don't like. I mean, I could just do it because I feel like.
That would be irrational. Yeah.
So something could be logically coherent, but it doesn't make it right. Is my point. So,
yeah. So there's a difference. There's a difference between soundness and validity, but that means that's the separation between something that's purely a priori and then its application to, application to reality itself. So look at it like this: if you agree, we all have to accept logic. Let's say the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, the law of the excluded middle, that kind of thing. Then we have a rational framework from which to judge whether someone is reasoning correctly or not. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, but at the end of the day, I'm saying value systems are not able to be there's no logic to value systems. They're
yes, there is.
Axiomatical. So that's my point.
Where did you hear that?
It's logical to do this.
Where did you hear that?
Be contingent upon a value system. That's my point.
What's an axiom?
Something like a foundational thing that has nothing below it.
So an axiom actually it comes from in ancient Greece. It comes from ancient Greece, and it means it means it's self-evident. It's actually a self-evident belief. It's something that's true in itself.
What I just said.
No, foundational. So you could argue that something's foundational and is hypothesized. In which case you would say, then I could claim that you're begging the question. If you say that, so look at it like this. If you say all trees are green, and I go, well, no, that's begging the question. Why should I believe that all trees are green? Then you would have to be able to prove that position, and it would be contingent on your ability to prove it. Something that is axiomatic, you would point to it and you would go, it is undeniable. It is a fact of reality. And that's a separation between that something that's axiomatic and something which is a hypothesis. So no, I don't believe that these value, we all start with these value principles that are axiomatic. So why would you say that we do?
Well, no. Okay, hold on. If that's a problem with terms, then I'm just saying all value axiomatic. Because do you not agree with that?
No.
Okay, so what would value be based upon then?
I would say value is based upon, if I was to say axiomatic, I would mean axiomatic in the literal sense. And so I would say that our value responses are based upon something which is valuable. I take value to be a judgment, so the judgment of whether something has actually achieved an end. and in relation to some sort of presupposed goal. I think that the only goals that exist in reality are defined by a means-ends relationship. That means-ends relationship exists in all subjective beings, all sentient beings. We all try to satisfy ourselves, express our desires. And so all of those desires contain a measure of value. All of those, they all contain, or rather all of those individuals who are trying to express their desires are the measure of value. That's what it means to have value, to be an evaluator.
Okay. Again, none of what you said still doesn't prove. Like, my point is.
Well, then prove it
the
wrong.
idea of valuing, because you said goals or whatever, right? Goals are still something that are axiomatic. Like, you don't like.
No.
Also, like when you say I have a goal for this, it's because you value it. So I do kind of think there's synonymous.
You could have an imminent goal. You could have an imminent.
I don't really see the difference between the two.
You could have an imminent goal that's not presupposed. So you don't have to say that I am presupposing that what I want is X. You could have a goal that actually is X, and it's defined.
They're killing, and overall,
I think I
almost
fixed the
ensures a
problem.
negative experience. Oh, you sorted?
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry.
No,
I think I
no.
fixed the problem.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. All right, yeah, okay, if you but basically what I was saying is that when you define yourself as an individual, like I noticed that you used human, for example. You said, "Oh, I'm an individual, I'm a human." And I'm assuming what you mean there is like I'm an individual human. And I just want to point out that even your individuality in that is defined in respect to a collective, a universal which contains multiple individuals. So when you say like I'm an individual human, or I'm an individual, you actually define your individuality in reference to others. And so it's the otherness, the category of otherness that is actually already still within the self. So when we understand what we are already pertaining, we already contain a notion of otherness within our identities. And so when you're associating with, human, you're doing so because there is there's like a utility with that, but there is also a necessity in that. You would lack self-understanding as a means to understand your most basic functions, for example, if you didn't associate with that group. Biologically, if you didn't associate with social groups, you would lack cultural knowledge of yourself. Now, the point that I would make is that if you were to try and discover ethical knowledge of yourself, that means to consider what you actually want, to divest your preferences from others, to express your desires, to endorse desires which are rational rather than irrational, so that you don't harm yourself by accident. If you want that kind of self-knowledge, then you need to associate with a universal which contains a measure of otherness, which is you need to associate with a universal, which is ontologically the foundation of value. Now, the point I made before is that subject-object relationships are the measure of value, ontologically. And so that means, in case you don't know what ontologically means, that means in manner of being. So in relationship to being, of what is. So what actually is valuable is sentience, because it demonstrates a subject-object relationship which allows for evaluation. A subject evaluates their interactions with the world. That's what sentience is about. That's why animals feel pain and pleasure, and that's what suffering and good and bad actually purports to. Okay, so when we consider that universally, when we're trying to have some sort of ethical knowledge of ourselves, if we're trying to relate it to something other than than something that is actually ethically, ontologically based, then we end up associating with a false narrative and actually can harm ourselves in an attempt to help ourselves. It leaves us open to what's called the principle of explosion, because we are putting in a false premise that X is valuable when it is not valuable. Like if we said like, white people are valuable, but there's no evidence there's no reason to think white people are valuable. Or if we were to say, being a man is valuable in itself, there's no reason to think that it's valuable in itself, or having blue eyes, or I don't know, whatever it might actually be. if it doesn't actually relate to some sort of ontology of value, then it's not valuable in itself. So what I would say is that the only way that you can self-associate in a rational way, which allows you to actually gain some sort of ethical knowledge, would be to associate with sentient beings. And if you don't do that, I'm saying you're begging the question, and I'm going to ask you to prove why something other than sentience is actually valuable.
Well, no, I don't think like I things are valuable based upon a function. I think to say sentient beings are just valuable because they're the things that can apply value. I don't know if I'm misinterpreting what you said, but I think they're valuable if you're trying to understand or you require it. So I think like for something to be valuable, it needs like a set of like presuppositions that you make, and then it becomes valuable. So I don't like I don't I so like if you could like condense what you said into like
so like
a question, I could try and answer, but like it was kind of like
yeah. So the ontology of a function exists in a being which is which has a means-ends relationship with the world. It has to be able to it has to have a function which is ongoing, which defines its relationship with reality for it and to judge. It has to be able to judge whether that relationship is whether it's explicit or implicitly judge whether its relationship with reality reflects that function. So like look at it like this. An animal, when it tries to express its desires, if it gets caught in a bear trap, screams in pain. That is an expression that it's not fulfilling its function and that it's experiencing a negative evaluation of reality. That is negative in itself. That is what negative value is. The pain that the animal's experiencing. The pleasure that it experiences is positive value. And these are expressions of the animal's means-ends relationship in the world. Animals seek pleasure, they seek to avoid pain, and that is essentially what all subjects and sentient beings do. We essentially try to avoid bad and seek good. They become a little bit more thick in humans. They become more complex in terms of psychological complexity. They become associated with larger groups of people with ideological purposes. But overall, it ends up relating back to the individual life of sentient creatures. Ultimately, we are all trying to live good lives, and that's the measure of everything. So when we try to understand like how to bring the greatest, the best life for ourselves, the only way that we are going to be able to do that is if we associate with a universal principle, which allows us to self-associate with that. With
that's
that.
the part that I'm like kind of having trouble with.
Why?
Like, completely. I don't know why. In order for this to happen, this and this and this and this, and like this and this for in order for this to happen is where I'm getting like lost. I don't know why that's necessary.
So why? All right. So do you think that you have implicit knowledge of yourself?
Well, I don't know what you mean by knowledge. Like, I know things about myself, but I don't know if you like. I can know things about something, but I don't know what you mean by knowledge. What do you mean by knowledge?
Okay, so by knowledge, I mean true, justified belief, free of relevant falsehood.
Oh, okay. So hold on. So when you like knowledge about myself, like in terms of what, like in terms of like the things that I know, like I'm like a person who lives here, and I've done this and I've done this, or do I know how I work, or like what do you mean? Do I know about myself? Like,
I mean, like,
what in terms of what do I know about myself?
Well, this is the thing. So do you understand what your function is in the world? What will bring you happiness?
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like, do you think you're born with that knowledge?
I think you are and aren't. I think it's a combination between nurture and nature.
See, I don't think you're born with any knowledge. I think that you're born pretty much tabula rasa, except for a few underlying experiences in the world, which, for example, you're born with the knowledge that exists in your senses.
I don't mean knowledge. I just mean like you're preloaded with like, I mean, they're like in behavioral psychology, they talk about like how we already come preloaded with like knowledge on how to understand certain things. So I'm saying it's a combination because our ability to understand language and our ability to communicate with others and our ability, like there are certain things we found in babies that are just preloaded. So I'm speaking in terms of that.
Yeah, I would just say that's like the knowledge that's found in your senses. So that's just sensual knowledge, like your ability to understand. Like, so for example, their ability to understand language is not necessarily ability to actually comprehend words. Like, they don't understand the words in the language. They have the ability to develop a communicative skills, right? So they have the senses necessary and the capacities necessary to engage in a linguistic framework. And even in, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit, I will definitely question some sort of universal grammar. I don't think that we necessarily have a universal grammar, although I do think that we have perhaps, let's say form of
No,
logic that exists. That
I'm
that is
saying
then
what's
conditioned.
called like now apes can't understand English even if we train them to understand English, and that's because of the way their brain is organized and like compartmentalized and basically functions. So I'm saying our brain, the way our the way the
Which
human
is what I
body's
said, like capacity.
made and
Sorry.
Yeah.
the way the human body's structured is why we can understand certain things. So
Sorry,
it's we can't say fully nurture. I'm saying that's not entirely correct.
Before it proceeds any further, I just would say it's been about 31 minutes, and we do need to consider other guests. But it's just
Oh, my bad.
Kind of slow it down a little bit. Yeah, just sorry to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly
no,
I just want to ask, like, one, I think that there is a definite, like, begging the question of why we need to start off with, like, like, why everything's subjective, why we should start with axiomatic beliefs. I think that so, for example, if I say the proposition, that murder is wrong, why you would say that requires some sort of fundamental subjective axioms for me to be able to say that, I would ask you why you would say that it's subjective. Like, why should I assume that it's individualistic and not objective, or rather, why should I assume that it's particular? I think that's the spot, that the word that we kind of need to engage with. Why is it particular to one individual over another? What makes it that an individual's judgment over whether something's right or wrong is only right or wrong to that individual? Like, and I think that this is, to put this in kind of ancient Greek terms, I think Protagoras said this. Man is the measure of truth. Hello. Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, why I should like accept that man is the measure of truth.
I don't want to like take up like your guys like panel or whatever. So I'll just like I guess like my final statement to answer kind of your question. What I believe is I really don't believe man is a measure of truth. I really don't believe like truth is a tangible thing. It's more of like a concept. So I think like at the base of it, I don't think we can make any moral judgments that are absolutely true. I think they're all contingent on values and a multitude of other beliefs, so like cultural influences, blah blah blah, biological makeup, all that stuff. So at the end of the day, I just don't think it's right for anyone to voice their beliefs on other people, and I think it's kind of weird that vegans feel the need to evangelize basically their belief system to other people, like, and basically convince other people their way is the right way, because there is no right way. I believe people should just live their life and take the path that best fits them, and like no matter what it may be. So
okay. I think that there is
that would lead to just like anything being like free reign if it's best for someone like individually.
I mean,
if it makes you happy and if it makes you feel like who you truly are, you should definitely do it.
I think that this is the thing. I think that trying to argue that there is no such thing as truth, I think, is essentially a self-defeating argument, because the arguments that you're relying upon to make the position have any sort of force intellectually in terms of beliefs is essentially self-destructive. It's skepticism which destroys itself. You're trying to talk yourself out of words.
No, hold on, because it's not an intellectual point though. That's
yes,
you're interpreting it as an intellectual point, but I don't believe in it.
Oh, sorry, this argument
I just believe
isn't
in
an
the idea
argument.
to live your life. It's more of just a lifestyle, like the same way you guys would say your veganism lifestyle. My lifestyle is living the way I want to live. I'm not going to let other people control me.
So. How do you know it's a lifestyle? I guess this is the point. Like, no matter what,
I don't need to sit there and question it. I'll just live it and I'll experience it.
I'm very well aware that you don't sit there and question, because if you did sit there and question, you would see that this is absolutely absurd.
That's what questioning. Okay, what's the point in questioning things?
Because you can actually come to some form of knowledge claim. Like, if you didn't question things, then putting a fork in a plug socket would be just as rational as not doing it. Like, the point is that you're actually trying to achieve some sort of goal in your life. When you try and you say like, oh, as long as it makes you happy, well, the only way that you're going to gain the knowledge to know what makes you happy, even if it's just avoiding those pains like putting a fork in a plug socket, or smashing your head against a glass plane or something like that, that kind of experiential knowledge is developed from truth claims, from the ability to understand that actually actions have consequences, and relate that to your goals in the world, to create logical deductive systems, which is precisely why when you say like, oh well, it's dependent upon these axiomatic systems, you're still relying upon, you say like, oh, I'm not relying upon questioning, I'm not relying upon like deductive logic and argumentation, yet you talk about axiomatic beliefs, which are first. I mean, like, I don't know if you understand like what you're actually saying, because these principles are actually the first the first phases within a syllogistic system. That's where they come from. So, like, the whole point of what you're saying, well, what do you think an axiom is? Do you think that people just assume an axiom and then just stop doing whatever they are, like axioms in mathematics?
No, I'm saying I don't see the point in. Again, I think there's a separation between like objective things like the sun exists, or like Jupiter is a planet or whatever.
So you say
and the separation between that and like values, which are purely subjective, that have like no bearing on the physical. They're not intangible in any real way.
So do you have an argument as to why ethics is separate from other epistemological fields, or are you just going to
because they're not tangible? They're abstract ideas. Like what it means to be a good person isn't tangible. I can't touch a good person. I can touch a person who's acting good or whatever.
Truth is only empirical.
No, not technically, because I think you can have your own truth, not empirical.
Well, like, if you could have something which is look, if truth was empirical, right? If it was only things you could touch, then 1 + 1 = 2 wouldn't be true. It would only be a relationship of ideas. Also, I would say that empiricism is false. The only way that you can understand objects and materialism is to apply concepts to them, which would be necessary for your position anyway. When you talk about axioms, like, oh, well, I can touch it. Well, assuming that something is true because you can touch it is already an implicit an assumption, which I would ask you to justify. So, like, this is why I think you're absurd, because none of your arguments are foundation.
I'm not absurd because like I said, my definition of truth may be different from your definition of truth, but my definition of truth is pragmatism. So, like, that's why I would say empiricism is true, because we can act it out and it will work.
Who's pragmatism?
Thing about maths, I don't even believe logic is I think logic is a way for the brain to understand the universe. I don't think logic is something foundational for the universe to exist or something. I think it's foundational, and I know you explained the difference between foundational, blah blah. But like, you can explain that if you want again. But I think it's a way for us to understand the universe, and I think the most pure thing is our connection with God, and that's what I do every day. So I mean, I have my connection with God. I do what I need to do. But yeah, it's okay. No,
okay. Yeah, we need to wrap it up.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're a Christian pre-supper. So is that how you kind of came to the idea of your position, by the way?
Oh no, I just grew up as a Mormon, and now I'm more of just a Christian, is non-denominational, but yeah.
Yeah, but is it presuppositional? Like for example, do you watch the content of people like Jay Dyer or something?
No, I don't watch any. I was going to say intellectuals. I just live my life
because Christian presuppositionalism is one, I think, begging the question, and two, I think that it's the entirely honestly misses the not only the entire point of Christianity, I mean, for example, the word and for example, in Catholicism, it means universal for a reason. It's not to say that God exists regardless of depending on any sort of scholasticism or arguments about God. God exists as either a universal or something necessary and simple. Like the understanding of God as the creator, if you're going to have a belief for him in some sort of Christian notion, I don't think that you could just say, oh, well, everyone can have beliefs which are, and that doesn't actually have any bearing to reality. No, you must fundamentally accept that God is real and live your life by a natural law. That is what Christianity is about.
All right, so I don't want this to go to forever. So I don't believe in God in terms of an intellectual thing. I have faith in God, and that's about it. So I don't really try and prove and try and justify God. But I'll hang around in the audience or whatever, and then I'll stay I like this Discord server, so I'm in here quite often. So maybe another conversation. But thanks for having me up here.
Thank you. I just say just finally that if you were the victim of these things that you say, well, as long as you're being you and doing what you've got to do, I don't think that you'd actually hold this position. But we can talk about this another time. It's really easy victimizing others until it's turned around on us. But yeah, thank you very much for talking. We'll go on to the next person. I'll move you to the audience. Oh, you're already there. Excellent. Hello, PP.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on for so long. It's just I hate I hate presuppositionalism, man. I hate it so much. I
know. There's many things that hurt you.
Well, it's such a self-defeating argument.
Say morality is subjective, then you're going to be so angry.
Well, the thing is that presuppositionalism throughout philosophy, is through a philosophical history is just it's just an unjustifiable assertion. And if it's either got if it's unjustifiable and it's not necessary, then it's begging the question and it's a logical fallacy. And I think that I'm just going to go, you're absurd. Goodbye. Like I don't understand.
Could be worse. Could have just been Darth Dawkins.
But he's a presuppositionalist, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is a presuppositionalist. All the idiots online are presuppositionalists.
Yeah, he is a presup. He's like King Presup.
Oh, sorry.
So, Sour Smile. You need to unmute. Are you all right? Hello.
Yeah, I'm good. Hello, do you guys hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, I can hear you all good. All right. So, I guess you can see the title: "Debate a Vegan YouTuber. Why aren't you vegan yet?"
So sorry, I'm quite nervous since there's a lot of people and you're live streaming.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thanks,
So this is not my first, and it's like super late here. So excuse me if I don't make any sense.
That's okay. Go for it.
So for me, I'm not really vegan. So and I'm not here really for debating. I just want to take your guys' opinions on stuff, since I believe two of you are vegans.
Mm-hmm. We are.
Yes.
You want to go for it,
Yes.
PP, then? Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm guessing you're asking. So yeah, ask away.
yeah, okay. So one of the first thing that is in my mind is there's like a lot of medicines that is like from like a part of animals. Like there's gelatin, which is from pig fat, and it is in the most medicine. So how do you guys like vegans deal with that stuff? If you need that medicine, but it's part from an animal.
So I mean, like, it's kind of, if I can avoid it, I do avoid it. So if I have the option to get a vegan option, I ask for a vegan option. If there's not one available, then I'll take the medicine. I would also take it if it contained, I don't know, like humans in it. Like, it's more about what's possible and practicable. Are you able to do otherwise? Would it be rational for you to do otherwise? If all the vegans died because we didn't accept medicinal treatment, then we're not necessarily going to succeed in our goals. The reality of the situation is that what we're trying to achieve is not the harm of individuals, but the help of all sentient beings. So, like, vegans aren't obligated to avoid medication when it's necessary. To give that, actually, if you want the philosophy of that, if you're interested, it's called the rule of double effect. So, you're not trying to harm another individual. You're not disrespecting another individual. You are respecting yourself, and that comes and your duty to yourself comes with the consequence of conflicting with your duty to another. And in this case, I would say that your duty to yourself obliges you to take the medication.
Well, that's really a good answer. And my second question is, so there's like a lot of people like me that are like not vegan, and like don't have, like, for me in my culture, we don't really have a lot of vegans here. Like, you really rarely here in my country, you really like see a person or two that are like fully vegan. So like, for people that me, when they go like to the internet and they like see like the top YouTubers, when they talk about vegans, like they see like people like the vegan teacher or vegan games.
Oh, vegan
and,
teacher,
like,
terrible, yeah.
See how forcible they are. And for me, I'm kind of like, I was like, damn, vegans are that aggressive, like, to share their stuff. But after that, when I started like digging deep, and I found like some really like wholesome people that just stand by their thing. So what are your guys' opinions on like people that are like the vegan teacher and like vegan games, who like, I believe vegan games, one of the things I heard that he tried to make his dog vegan, or
nothing wrong with your dog being
vegan.
My dog's vegan, man. My dog's been vegan now for over 3 years. Dogs are omnivorous, man. So, like, just remember, like, omnivores don't need meat. They're opportunistic predators. So, they eat whatever's available. As so long as they're getting enough protein, they're healthy. Because they're so the difference between like a dog and an obligate carnivore, the main difference really is the ability to produce taurine. Carnivores don't have the ability to produce taurine and only get taurine from their food. And likewise, herbivores atypically, like omnivores, and like, so like, look at this. Carnivores can't produce taurine. Herbivores usually can't produce vitamin C. Now, carnivores can produce vitamin C, and omnivores, I think, can produce vitamin C. Funnily enough, we can't produce vitamin C, but omnivores typically can produce their own taurine and produce their own vitamin C. They're able to eat a lot of a really varied diet, which is why they're adaptable to their environment, right? And dogs are incredibly adaptable in that respect. As long as they're getting enough protein, I think it's like 20-something%, I'll have to double check, grams of protein, of crude protein in the diet. So long as it's bioavailable, they'll produce enough taurine and they'll be happy and healthy. So like any high quality vegan dog food is certainly good enough for them. But with vegan gains, sorry,
I was just going to say there is data showing like they have compared plant-based diets with dogs and shown that the outcomes are positive, and that it's actually especially helpful for dogs with high allergies. So if you would like, I could send you some data representing positively plant-based diets while PP's still talking to you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say as well, like vegan gains, like I actually like vegan gains. I think his approach isn't necessarily for everyone, but in terms of activism, we've all got our different approaches, right? Like I approach things very philosophically. I know some people approach things very like
I like people like approach like you prospective. Sorry if I'm spelling your name wrong, but like you approaching us like the people that don't really much know about veganism or like can't really open their mind to it by like trying with them civilly instead of like how vegan gains try to get it by force or trying to bully it out of them.
Well, I think that we'll have different approaches. I'm not going to obviously say anything about Richard necessarily, like his approach. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think that some people really respond to Richard and his approach. Do you know what I mean? And then like the straight talking kind of forceful approach. Some people don't like it. Do you know what I mean? That's just a matter of preference in terms of like how you like to hear the message. But I think that the thing that unites us is that the message is the same, which is that all sentient beings have value, and that's what kind of unites the vegan community as a whole. That there is a value inherent to all animal life, and when we consume animal products, we are actively disrespecting that value that exists. When we go and buy meat, dairy, or eggs, we're supporting an industry which is killing billions of animals, destroying our planet, and even harming ourselves. So, like in the vegan definition, it talks about it being for the benefit of animals, humans, and the environment. And I think that's what unites us as a movement. And like if you don't like vegan, don't watch him. Do you know what I mean? Watch someone else. Earthling Ed has a really good approach. I don't know if you've seen him before. I really like his very Socratic approach. Not very confrontational, but straight talking. I think that's really great. You've got people like Philosophical, like me and Alex O'Connor, like Cosmic Skeptic. Like Vegan Gaze, like right here, she has her own approach where she does her own debates and
videos. They are really hooking. Like
What's
if
that?
you guys your videos, Vegan Gaze, they are really hooking. If you guys gonna really get me up on the stage, I will probably be still stuck in her channel. So.
That's brilliant, yeah. And then PP has his approach, where he like wordsmiths you into like admiring what he's saying, and then you fall into a daze, and then before you know it, you're a moral objectivist.
Hopefully, I mean, for the love of God. Anyway, but the thing is that but yeah, like I think we all have our different approaches. But if one approach resonates with you more than another, I know that you said in your country there's not very many vegans. But like we all need what trendsetters. The reality is like every civil rights movement started with small groups of people, coming out and trying to convince larger groups of people to do the right thing. Most of the time, they faced incredible amounts of backlash. It's taken many years for it to grab momentum, but then when it becomes popular, it snowballs, and that's essentially how they sort of like all ethical movements have developed over time.
Yeah, I get you guys. Like for me, here, like I told you, our culture is like more focused on the animals. Like there are some rituals here that are focused on animals. So like we tend like to not really open our minds to that vegan stuff. But for me, it's to each their own.
You see, I would. I would. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Continue.
I was just gonna say, like, I can't say like to each their own when like it would make sense, or like live, like, you know, like a lot of people say, like live and let live and that kind of thing. But when someone is actively killing someone else, or when someone's actively harming another, you can't allow that behavior to go uncontested. And so this is the thing. What I dislike is when people say, like, "Oh, you're trying to force your views upon other individuals." I would say that I actually want everyone to behave rationally, and that's the issue. When I see someone that is engaged in an irrational judgment, I don't even think I'm not forcing my judgment upon them. I'm asking them to question their own. Do you think you are justified in the actions you're taking? I can't stop you. You know, I can't stop. If you want to go and buy meat, dairy, and eggs, I can't physically stop you. It's legal. And you know, I'd be the one getting thrown in prison if I was, you know, to physically intervene. So
why we have laws in the first place, isn't it? Because we want to get people to act rationally. Because if we left it free for all, there would be people murdering people and getting away with it, probably more so than now. Like, you know, so we do enforce these things, and I think the difference is you just don't see a justification for, you know, having this as an obligation, because I don't think maybe you're seeing the other animals as the victims that they are. I don't think you've resonated with that, because once you do, it becomes this imperative of, you know, trying to protect their interests and, you know, advocating against their exploitation and killing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you guys very much. I don't want to take more any of your time. You guys are really doing something good. Like for me, like I said, for me, I don't really know much of vegan. So thank you for bringing more awareness to people like us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, man. And if there's anything that, you know, if you ever decide to like try veganism out or anything, and you need some advice or anything like that, just hit me up, and I'm sure one of us will be able to help you.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take it
all
easy.
right. I'll move you to the audience. Take it easy. I think. Oh no, you're already gone. Right. Okay. Let's bring Vinny in. Fantastic.
Hello.
Hello, Vinny. Hello.
Hello. How are you guys?
Pretty good. How are you,
I'm
man?
okay.
I'm good, thanks. Just a couple things before I start. It's 4 a.m. where I am, so sorry if I'm a bit quiet. But
Don't worry about it, man.
yeah, I've just got a couple questions. So I don't really want to go into like moral stuff, but like scientific stuff, I've got a bit of like questions.
Sure.
So what I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys are obviously insanely more educated than I am. But you guys can't eat eggs, right, or milk or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean we can,
And
but
we
we
just
choose not to.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if so obviously you guys are vegan because you
Animal rights.
don't like harming animals, am I
Yeah.
correct?
Animal rights. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can't eat eggs, but like is farming eggs from chickens actually harming them? Like if it's just natural the way they
Do you wanna tell them, or shall I?
No, you go for it, Poo-Poo. I've said it quite a few times today.
go?
All right,
Okay.
yeah. So in the production of eggs, before we even get to the point in which we're farming eggs, the initial step is to produce egg-laying hens, right? So like the chickens that can actually lay the eggs. So that means you need a population full of only females. So they get a lot of fertilized eggs, like the breed chickens. They get all that fertilized eggs. They incubate them, and then when they hatch, they basically put on a conveyor belt. They look at the genitalia of the chickens. If they're a female, they stay on the conveyor belt, and if they're male, they're tossed aside. That conveyor belt then usually goes to a macerator, a big blender, and they're blended alive. That's day one. That's from day one. So 50% of all chickens that are in the egg industry have already been killed from birth. The next step is then to raise these chickens. Now, a lot of them have been genetically engineered and selectively bred to grow faster. So when they do grow, they're actually incapable of supporting their own weight. But we'll get onto that in a second. The first thing to do is to realize that these chickens are going to live very cramped, and and this is even if they're free range. So they're going to live in communities which are incredibly cramped and far too much for them to psychologically cope with. Chickens can deal with about 100 other chickens before they lose their minds and the struggle to cope. Most farms have got about 10,000 chickens. So these chickens go absolutely mental and start murdering each other, pecking each other to death and cannibalizing each other, despite it not being a natural behavior. So the way that we deal with that is we sear off their beaks with a hot knife, and the beaks are the same kind of material as your fingernail. They've got the same sort of cuticle. They've got like I don't know if you've ever damaged a fingernail or anything, but you can actually torture people with your fingernails because of the nerve endings. They're incredibly sensitive. Yeah, so we sear off sear through their beaks, which is incredibly painful for them without anesthetic. And then we throw them in a dark room, and feed them, multiple times a day, usually automatically. Sometimes they're in cages, which is even worse. If they're in cages, then they can't even open their wings a lot of the time. And this is a natural behavior for chickens, so they live a life in which they are permanently frustrated from one of their most basic behaviors. Moving to the next stage, they are then fed until and produce eggs. They produce about 365 eggs a year, about one egg a day. The production of eggs, obviously it's dependent on the chicken, but the production of eggs to that extent means that they leach calcium from their bones and often have fractures because they're unable to, because of them trying to support that mass, and also because they've got no calcium in the bones to actually like hold them up. Like the bones are hollow, the bones are already hollow, but the bones are not strong enough to support their weight, so they have fractures and they suffer pain. If they're in cages, sometimes their claws, their talons, actually gets because they don't move for so long, they actually become attached. They actually grow around the cage itself. So when they're getting pulled out of the cages and sent to slaughter, their legs get ripped off. So they go through this, I think, for 35 months. Is it? Am I right? It's 3 to 5 years, isn't it? Actually, is it 3 to 5 years that they lay eggs for?
Yeah, it's 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's 3 to 5 years. Yeah. So they lay eggs for 3 to 5 years, and in that time, they go through these horrible conditions where they suffer extreme stress and never see daylight, usually. And then at the end of it, they are ripped out of their cages or forced into baskets. A lot of the time they're unwilling, so the farm hands get very stressed with them because they've got a quota to meet and in a certain amount of time. So often they get maliciously beaten. Anyway, so then whatever way they get there, they end up going to the slaughterhouse. When they get to the slaughterhouse, they're put on. They usually put on a factory line that they don't necessarily want to get on. They're hooked up upside down. Sometimes they go through this water stunner. So there's essentially an automatic stunning device, which is to prevent them from feeling pain. A lot of the time, those malfunction and don't adequately stun the animal, or if they do stun the animal, there's still problems, and so we'll get onto that. So then they're moving through. Sometimes the stunners don't work, and they just don't bother using them. So they move through the stunner. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then they either automatically do this or they do it by hand. So if they're doing it by hand, then there are individuals who are stood there slitting the throats of chickens one by one, in which they are cutting their heads off, in which they bleed out and die. If it's automatic, then there is basically a razor blade which slits their throat. But because it's set to an average height of a chicken, some chickens are too short, some chickens are too big, and it slices either through their skull and part of their head off, or it slices through their body, and then they bleed out slowly and in pain. And sometimes they're not even stunned. So this is, and then this isn't even including the abuse that they face a lot of the time at the hands of slaughterhouse workers, who are described as having a dark sense of humor. Sometimes they rip the heads off of chickens. Sometimes they're told to rip the heads off of chickens because there's problems with the machinery, and they're told that the best way to kill it would just be to rip its head off. Sometimes they're known to do things like squeeze the shit out of them, like just crush them, to squeeze the shit onto each other and stuff and laugh about it. So no, there's the industry itself is actually really brutal and horrible, and it increases likelihood of loads of different horrible stuff for humans as well. One, because we've got a lot of crazy individuals who develop a psychology based around killing animals for a living, killing thousands of birds a day, and we'll also have a risk of zoonotic diseases, which, like bird flu, which pops up every couple of years and comes with the possibility of a real possibility of global pandemic, which is far worse than COVID, since I think H1N1 had a mortality rate of about 30%. So when we look at it, like, the industry itself comes with a lot of ethical problems.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. So
I'll like
if
take.
yeah, okay, thank you for explaining that. But let's say there was like a family run business, like completely run by a family, and they just had farms and they had cows out the back, just a big acreage property. And it wasn't owned by any company, no like industrial, no whatever.
Backyard hens or something.
And yeah, so they just went out there and milked the cows, got their eggs from the chickens who live free, and they sold them to like locally, and like no like harm is involved. It's just completely family owned. Would you guys drink that milk? Because it doesn't involve any harm.
There's definitely going to be harm.
any-
So let's explain why. So one, for them to obtain the chickens in the first place, so when they buy the chickens to raise, 50% of them have already been blended alive. So just supporting the industry which blends chickens alive is wrong in itself. So them buying the chickens to put in their backyard is already causing a considerable amount of harm. Then the chickens that they do have, okay, they live quite a good life. One, like taking eggs from a chicken, that actually they're placed under, they don't actually like people touching their eggs. Like, what a surprise. So they get pretty pretty stressed about it. So you've got to actually wait for the chicken to. So they not only have you got to wait for it to not to lay the egg, but you've actually got to wait for it to discard the egg, to not show interest in the egg because it realizes it's unfertilized. And at that point, if you take it, it doesn't get stressed out. But that takes an extra couple of days, which slows production. So you end up producing less eggs again. Then you've got to feed them. Then if you do take it too soon as well, they start producing another egg because like they get like it's part of their instinct. Like if they start, as soon as the egg's gone, they start producing another one like out of stress. And so you end up with them producing way more eggs than their bodies can cope with. So you've actually got to put calcium in their diet. So because these eggs have been selectively bred as well and genetically engineered, they need calcium in their diet. So the only way that you could ever do this is if you rescued chickens rather than bought them. Like, so you saved them from slaughter. And then when you had them, you allow them to lay their eggs, but they're not very good at laying eggs now because they're old spent chickens and we're getting sent to slaughter for that reason. When they do lay their eggs in a much slower rate, you've got to make sure that you're feeding them high quality food so that they're not going to have like fractures and stuff like that and face pain. And then once you've got that egg, then you can do whatever with what you want, right? But then let's say in 5 years, let's say you get a 3-year-old chicken. It's only got, let's say, or a 4-year-old chicken. So it's got like a year left of laying eggs, if you're lucky. When it hits that like 5-year-old kind of mark and it no longer lays eggs, are you going to send that chicken to slaughter? Because if you're not, and let's say you're trying to run a business, then you're going to have a yard full of chickens who do nothing but eat food and cost you money. So it becomes economically almost impossible. You're getting eggs that are being laid like once every couple of days, maybe a week. You've got to sell those eggs rather quickly because they're already going bad. And you've also got to pay for higher quality food and obtain these chickens not from standard businesses, but from a supply chain which is incredibly unstable. Like there's no economy that can actually function this way. Like you would not be able to have a business that worked ethically like that. And that's just for chickens. For cows, it gets even worse, man. Like cows only produce milk when they're pregnant. So you've got to impregnate the cow. And again, you've got to think about where these cows are coming from. But let's just say you managed to source a cow, which you could then impregnate. You've got to think about what you've got to have a bull to impregnate it, or you've got to rent a bull to impregnate it. And when you're renting that bull, you've got to think about whether that bull is going to be sent to slaughter at a certain period of time and whether it's being used as, an object and not treated fairly. So let's say you are either paying a massive amount to rent a bull, or you are doing it like artificial insemination. Now, artificial insemination requires essentially what the industry describes as a rape rack, or some means of tying the animal down so it doesn't resist, forcing your arm into its anus and injecting bull semen inside of it, which I think is grotesque and wrong. And then, especially since the cow resists. Now, once the cow is pregnant, it then it starts lactating. So it starts lactating, and it starts its glands swell, and it experiences like a little bit of pain with that, which is why you'd probably justify milking it, right? So you'd be like, oh, well, it's in pain. If I don't milk it, it'll keep feeling pain and it'll swell too much, right? So let's say you milk that cow whilst it's pregnant. But then once it actually gives birth to the child, well, then the calf, then the calf actually needs to suckle. And if it doesn't suckle, then it's not going to grow up, and it's not going to grow up strong and healthy. It's going to have diminished immunity, and it's not. And also the calf the calf and cow have like basically a maternal bond. The cow actually cares about the well-being of the calf, right? So this is all going on, and you're trying to milk the cow, except you can't milk the cow because the calf's drinking all of the milk. And so you have this issue where the only way you're going to get the milk is if you send the calf away or remove the calf away from its mother, which causes them stress. The cows have been known to cry out for days for their calves, chase vans and stuff in which their calves have been taken on, loads of stuff because they have a maternal bond, and a lot of the time you've got to now think about what you're doing with this calf. If it's a male, it will never produce milk, so it's an economic liability. It is again just going to eat your food and never make you money. So you're either going to have to kill it, or you're going to have a bull that just lives in your garden, and it can't mate with the other cow because the other cow is a female, its mother, rather. So this is a really precarious situation, which is just an economic, drain. No one in their right mind would run this business,
You've actually completely proved that point to me, touche. But yeah, thank you. I've got one more point. So you guys are obviously trying to like spread a message, like why aren't you vegan yet? Like why aren't you like trying to prove to why like being vegan is the better option? In my opinion, to be honest, I think it's kind of impossible to spread this message to the amount of people that these industries would be shut down.
Well, that might be fundamentally not understanding how some of the systems work. Like, for example, things propping up the dairy industry currently are lobbying and subsidies. So money gets funneled into these industries so that they can be propped up. Like in the UK, PP, you might remember a bit more about this, but our dairy industry struggles quite heavily and does need to be heavily subsidised in order for it to continue. And if you have enough people, we've seen this with other social justice movements. You didn't need everybody advocating for women's rights for women to then have those rights. It was a loud minority calling for something, and having those demands met. And I don't think that we're going to need like even the majority in order to affect subsidization and lobbying to the point where then actual supply and demand speaks for itself. And then I think that we'll see a massive decline in those products, and then those products will probably increase in price, and the plant-based versions will become more affordable because they're less resource intensive, and the demand will increase as more people are consuming those products, because even non-vegans at this point are consuming these products. And I think we will see an effect, like I don't know if you've heard of an innovation curve, but I think it will probably follow that, whereby we'll see a drastic increase as soon as those the subsidies are dealt with, and as soon as we hit maybe even like 20% vegans, like I think we could probably have a massive impact on those industries. I don't know what you think, PP.
No, I completely agree. I think you put it really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exactly that's happening. If you notice that a lot of vegan products have dropped in price over time.
I've noticed that like quite a few products, like there's these porkless pies in like Tesco, they've dropped 30p out of nowhere. Like just
it's really doing quite well. It is really doing like some of the businesses are doing really well just because of the because of innovation and because of increased demand. The more vegans you get buying the products, the more money that plant-based alternatives have to invest and compete with the meat products, and it's economies of scale. Like if I have a small market, I've got to put the prices higher to pay for the supplies that I need for production. But if I have a larger market, then I can drop the price point lower and still I can make an even bigger profit so long as I've got more people buying it. So this is like what's called the elasticity of supply and the elasticity of demand. How many people can you get buying? Like the percentage of people who would buy it at a lower price. And I think that these products have a considerable elasticity. And I think that meat, dairy, and eggs don't have that much elasticity, which is why you seem to have people kind of even staying away from milk now more and more, just moving to plant-based alternatives. But also, dairy farmers complain all the time that they're not getting the sales necessary to sustain their business, and they're relying upon in the UK at the minute. Well, actually, the last time I checked, it was under Common Agricultural Policy in Europe. Dairy farmers were being supplied that 60% of the profits that dairy farmers received came from European subsidization, like Europe's just giving farmers money. Like here, because of all the items you've made, you get this X amount of money. Now, there is an issue there because they get a certain amount of money that has nothing to do with sales. It's just how much they produce, right? That's the problem with subsidization. It removes its attempt. It's meant to mitigate supply and demand, like negatives of demand. So if you don't have the demand, or it's supposed to encourage supply so that you can keep prices lower, rather than essentially relying upon markets to form some sort of equilibrium. Now, the thing is Britain luckily has changed its subsidization policy. So we are already, vegans are already, campaign against subsidization for farms. But the beautiful thing is that subsidization for farms now in the UK are tied to profit. So the less money that, dairy farms make or any of these animal products make because people are buying vegan alternatives, the lower that subsidization is going to be. So what you have is a cyclic effect, like a cascade effect, in which if people stop buying animal products now in the UK, the price of animal products will be forced to go up. And because the price of animal products will be forced to go up, less people will buy them, and you can see how this is going to continue onwards. And so when we're looking at, how many people we need, I think I saw an estimate that would only need about 11 to 20% of the population to switch to a vegan diet, and then meat, dairy, and eggs would collapse in terms of animal products. They wouldn't be able to sustain themselves in the market because the way that the amount of individuals they need to buy their products to sustain themselves in terms of the economy of scale is massive. If you think of the costs involved of animal agriculture, they're pretty huge. You need to grow animals for numerous years. You need to feed them every day. You need to pay for people to look after them. You need to pay for the housing, the shelter, the water. You need to pay for the land in which they live on. It's an incredibly ineffective or a very costly business, and it doesn't produce a lot of money, which is why the government's already intervening. So I quite the opposite. I think that veganism's inevitable. I think that capitalism will push veganism forward because any business person with the right mind will see more money in taking a raw resource, which has to be then take the raw resource that's being, transformed, and let's say they can actually just take one resource, transform that into an alternative product, rather than having to pump loads of money in, buying multiple resources, increasing their costs tenfold to produce a product which is at a relatively similar price point. If you think about how much milk costs versus plant milk, it's not even that different. And if you think about having to pay for oats rather than paying for, 50,000 cows, it's a real big difference. So no, I think capitalism will push veganism, man.
Hey, yeah, I get that. But I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't see within at least the next 50 years McDonald's or like Burger King or Hungry Jack shutting down, or like I just could not imagine that
They're not.
persuading
No, they're not.
that much people to like go vegan and stop shopping there.
You've got like the
The-
McVegan coming out,
They've
man.
just got the muck plant, yeah, or something like that.
Oh,
It
wait,
wouldn't
yeah,
be
that is
they
true.
shut down. It would
Yeah.
be that they just serve plant-based foods.
That is true.
It costs less
So
for them to
it's-
do it, man. Like, think of it like this: they like, rather than like, if they can charge you the exact same amount for a burger, which costs them half as much to produce, why would they give you a burger that costs them twice as much to produce?
That is true, yeah.
And
Oh, well.
like you said, like, if you can't imagine it, like the BBC can, they actually wrote an article that in 50 years that the UK will be vegan.
Yeah, they're also saying that in about 2025, there's some estimates. Like there was like this billionaire philanthropist, I can't remember his name, saying that by 2025, he thinks we'll eat 50% of the animal products that we do in the UK.
And you know, and as well, like actually, if you look at where investment's coming from into these plant-based businesses, you've got like billionaires investing into vegan meats and vegan meat alternatives. They're becoming billion-dollar industries. The trajectory of the market
they're getting
is
insight, like they're getting insight that we're not. They're seeing, they're being, having conversations with people who are like top of their game. They know they can see ahead of the curve when it comes to consumption and profit. And they're conveying this information, so it would tell you that they know something that like is probably quite absolutely.
These are what are called blue ocean markets as well. So like because there's not as much competition, the more investment that you put in at this stage, the more it's going to pay off. So if you invest in, let's say, a plant like meat, like I don't know, like some sort of like vegan meat business right now, and you buy so many shares in that business, in 10, 15 years, your shares might have 10x'd because that market has like quadrupled in size. So like it's exactly the businesses. And like, right now, I would say veganism is probably one of the most lucrative things to invest in. And that's why you can see McDonald's, they're moving to make vegan options, and you can see all of these corporations producing vegan meats. And the population at the end of the day really just conform. Honestly, as I'm a socialist, trying to get the population to actually, challenge the markets at all is like impossible. So I think that like most people, if you can convince them to boycott animal products, I think there'll be a big change there. And I think that the rest of the population will just basically go along to get along. I don't think they're going to be rioting in the streets because they've got to eat McVegans over, that double, like that quarter pounders.
Okay, so yeah, I get what you're saying with like the Hungry Jacks like converting to whatever, like the vegan based options. That's actually really good. I forgot his name. I had a conversation in chat with, I think it was Abe. Yeah, it was him. I had a conversation with him about I think he sent something, but I didn't read it. But oh, this guy sent me chat. About how like a diet, like a plant based diet and like a meat based diet, or like omnivores is perfectly sustainable. I've so with my personal trainer, he says gives me diets each day and there's plenty of meat in it, but I don't think that if you had a meat diet full of steak and all this meat to get built or whatever, to have a fit healthy life could be the same as just eating plants, just straight up.
Why not?
I don't, it's just because the prove me wrong, completely prove me wrong if I'm wrong, because you're obviously way more educated than I am, but to be honest,
what reason do you
I think
eat the
meat
meat?
would have much more nutrients and healthy beneficials than just eating plants.
Excuse me. Well, not really. Actually, quite the opposite. If you look, there's actually a documentary. There's a really good documentary called Game Changers on Netflix. It's all about athletes turning vegan essentially because it comes with athletic benefits. So you've got a few things to consider here. When you're eating meat, you're usually eating it people usually go meat in terms of macronutrients. They're like protein, but that protein comes with a shit ton of saturated fat, usually, and other carcinogens and other and other issues which increase inflammation. So if you know anything, when you're working out and you eat and you're sore for the next couple of days, you're experiencing inflammation from tearing your muscles, right? And so if you want to increase your recovery rate, then you need to eat a low inflammatory diet so that you can get back to the gym as soon as possible and work out again. That's why, like, so you want a high recovery rate, especially if you're like a peak athlete. The faster you recover, the better you are going to perform, right? Because you're going to increase your volume, and that's essentially increasing your you're essentially your overload, right? So you end up so let's just look at it like this: a vegan diet or a plant-based diet, if you're doing it right, like you could eat if either people are eating just Doritos and shit, whether the vegan Doritos or meat, non-vegan Doritos, I think we're gonna agree the person going to the gym is gonna suck. But if you're both eating a healthy diet, the vegan diet is anti-inflammatory, whilst the meat diet is actually pro-inflammatory. So you end up seeing vegan athletes or athletes, when they switch to a vegan diet, actually increase their performance. They actually end up doing better. There's like loads of vegan bodybuilders. There's like Patrick Baboumian. He's like a vegan bodybuilder. He won when he was vegan. He won I think he got the world record in the yoke lift. You've got I'm trying to think of other, like, you've got like what's he called? Is it John Wilkes? He's like an ex.
Do you mean James Wilkes?
James Wilkes. Yeah. He was like he's like an ex-Marine. I'm trying to think of other, like Serena Williams, like tennis player, like that. Serena and Vanessa, I think they're both vegan. Trying to think. There's like
the tennis player. He's really good. Like one of the
Divokovic. Is it Divokovic? Is he?
Yeah.
I think it's Divokovic is vegan. There's loads of vegan athletes now, right? Like and like there's like NFL players and stuff like that are vegan and stuff. Like there's like quite a few like vegan athletes. Like Mr. Universe 2014's vegan. Like the thing is that or 2012, one of the two. If you just Google Mr. Universe vegan, you'll see him with these, like, the giant muscly man with his tiny little dog. Anyway, the thing is that there are loads of vegan athletes, and that's pretty much because of the rates of inflammation. Now, when we talk about protein, or like so, for example, nutrients, like, you can get any nutrient, like the animals get the nutrients from plants in the first place, right? That's kind of like 101. Obviously, animals can digest things you can't, like, for example, grass, like, and things like that. But in reality, like, when you're eating plants, you can get everything that exists in meat. The most prominent nutrients that you need to consider, or that people consider, are protein, vitamin D, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin B12. So protein, you can get protein from beans, lentils, legumes, all of which come with massive health benefits, especially high levels of fiber, which are really great for removing toxins from the body. Essentially, it's the number one nutrient associated with longevity. You've got and obviously other nutrients. There's actually loads of other nutrients, things like even associated with the fiber and its breakdown in your gut, which does a load of good for you. You can go and look that yourself, because there's so much information on this. Then you've got, let's say, iron. You can get iron all over the place. You get it from you can get iron from like black beans. I'm trying to think of other sources of irons. Like, I think red lentils are pretty high in iron. Do you know I'm trying to think of other sources of iron off the top of my head. Do you have any good sources of iron off the top of your head? Because I'm trying to remember them now.
Yeah, just beans and like dark leafy greens.
Dark leafy greens, yeah.
Source. Yeah.
Yeah.
But primarily, I think it's beans are like the best plant food. I can't recall.
I think there's like lentils, chickpeas, and stuff like that. I think
like legumes and beans.
Yeah. I think tofu is actually, I think, pretty good. I think chia seeds are all right.
Tofu, yeah.
I think, and hemp seeds and stuff as well. I think and I think dates and stuff are actually pretty good. Like
oh yeah, dates quite high in iron.
Yeah, and so I think raisins are as well and stuff like that. And then obviously you can get, like, if you're eating any wheat product anyway, it's fortified in elemental iron. So anything with wheat in it, like any sort of like breaded product, if you bread at all, that's already got iron added to it. Like cereals, they have iron added to them. And then
molasses as well.
Yeah, molasses is another good one.
Yeah.
And then you've got vitamin D. Vitamin D you can get from the sun. If you don't want to get it from the sun and you want to eat it, you can eat vitamin D2. You can get that from mushrooms, especially if you put mushrooms in the sun. It can like 100x, like, or even like 100,000 increase the amount of vitamin D2. It's also fortified in plant milks. And if you want to get vitamin D3, you can buy a vitamin D3 supplement. the same way as you can buy I think that loads of people buy vitamin D supplements, except vegan vitamin D3 supplements usually comes from mushrooms, like shiitake mushrooms, where non-vegan vitamin D3 supplements comes from like sheep wool oil,
Yeah, called lanolin.
lanolin, yeah. They like boil the sheep's wool and then scrape off the scum off the top, and that's what they put in a capsule.
You know what I'd rather.
Yeah.
Like, not only
I know it
ethically,
makes
but,
us part
ew.
cringe. It does make us part cringe. And then you've got vitamin A. So in plants, you've got that's beta carotene. So sweet potatoes, carrots, pretty much orange things, usually quite high in vitamin A. Anything that's high in beta carotene, I think like cabbage. There's loads of other foods. Like there's loads of foods that like are high in beta carotene. It's really super easy to get beta carotene. You can convert that to retinol, which is vitamin A. So it's pre-vitamin A. And if you eat it with fat, it massively increases your absorption. So if you were concerned, you could always have like carrots and hummus, and then you've got your vitamin A. Like this is the thing. It's actually like super easy. It's like it doesn't even take that much planning. You don't have to think about where you're getting all of these nutrients independently. You just have a varied diet. As long as you've got like a pretty varied diet, you're gonna hit all of these nutrients the same way as you would on a meat-based diet. But you don't have the saturated fat and the cholesterol, which are associated with diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's. Actually 14 out of 15 of our number one causes of death. So in terms of you see all these like meat, like these bodybuilders and these meatheads dying young for two reasons. One, because a lot of them on steroids and they've enlarged their hearts and stuff. But a lot of the time it's because they're actually having heart disease from the amount of cholesterol that they have in their bloodstream. And that's causing loads of issues for them, right? So if you have the advantage if you truly care about athletic performance and longevity, you can build into a big strong boy with plants. You just got to do it right, and you can even avoid some pretty nasty diseases along the way. So yeah, man, it's no problem.
Not even just big strong boys. You can be a big strong girl.
Oh yeah, I said it's just.
I get thick.
Well, I was gonna say like I said he could grow into a. No.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, people. Sorry.
Thank you so much. That's all I really had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
See ya.
I'll move you to the audience. See you later.
Bye, man.
Oh, that was lovely, wasn't that, PP?
Yeah, he was.
But yeah, you can
nice.
get thick. I'm quite a strong woman myself, I would say. As when people come to me like protein, though, I'm literally like a woman, and I'm like, I could probably carry you.
Well, that's
and you're like
actually worth pointing out. If anyone's actually wondering how much protein you need for peak athletic performance about 0. It depends on whether you're going for a caloric surplus or a caloric deficit, depending on your training cycle. And for someone who knows this much, I really should actually go to the gym. But you need about 0.75 grams of protein to 1.1 grams of protein, depending on for peak athletic performance, depending on whether you're bulking or cutting. And you can absolutely obtain that. That's per pound of lean mass. So that's in grams per pound of lean mass. So do the calculation for yourself. You'll find out your protein's probably not as high as your protein requirements aren't as high as you actually thought they were. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the thing that is so.
I genuinely, before I went vegan, I used to think I needed 300 grams of protein a day, and for my body weight at the time was insane. And sorry, hi mate, how you doing?
I doing good. I'll come here to ask some question about veganism.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
All right, thank you. So I want to ask, before you were talking about exploitation. Hey, sorry, my room. There's something crazy going on in the back. I want to ask, what qualify as exploitation, like harvesting, things like meat? I know meat is obviously like you kill the animal, but what about like milk and like the before you were talking about the oil from the sheep wool? Like, in what way is that harmful?
Do you want to tell milk this time? Do you want to do that?
Yeah. Just in terms of the sheep, like obviously sheep, like before they were selectively bred, they didn't rely on the humble human to come along and shear them and just hope that like they come before they like die of overgrowth. Like we've selectively bred a trait into them that then makes them dependent on our intervention. and we use them for that resource that they produce, and then we eventually kill them. They don't live long. It's about, is it PP? It's about 5 years they get sheep.
Yeah, I think it's about 5 years.
Yeah. So that's inherently exploitative to just selectively breed a species of animal to then be dependent on us in a way, and then use that resource that we've forced upon them to overproduce, and then kill them. So that is an example of that industry just being, I would say, morally repulsive. And what was the other one, Pete?
So my question then is, what we do about the animal that we breed then? What do we do about, like, 'cause there are so many of them in farms and stuff, because they're like, I know we're not talking about like wild ram and stuff on the mountain and thing like that. And hey, sorry, something crazy going on. But yeah, I want to ask what we're gonna do about these animals that we bred. Like, what's the plan for them after? Since we obviously can't just let like the massive number of these animals die, since we already have them like in this horrible state.
They're already gonna die, man. Like, that's what you got to remember. Like, all of these animals are condemned to death. Like, all of them. Like, there isn't an industry which is not killing these animals as soon as they become unprofitable. That's what they do. As soon as the animals aren't worth as much money, then they get sent to slaughter, and then they sell their carcasses, their meat, and then they buy more animals in. And that happens, with chickens, it's 3 to 5 years. With sheep, it's about 5 years. With cows, it's about 5 years. With pigs, it's actually, how was it? Pigs, it's like 4 to 6. I think. Anyway, like
about that.
Yeah, so I think it's 5 to 7 with cows, and I think it's 4 to 6 with pigs. All of these animals, like a pig can live 15 years, 15, 20 years. Cows can live 20, 25 years. Chickens can live 12 years, I think it is. All of these animals are being killed prematurely. They're not living out that long, like, happy lives. And when they're alive, they're being mistreated. They're either being beaten, or even if they're not being mistreated, they're always getting sent to a kind of gruesome, bloody death, unnecessarily. So when we look at it like this, when you're saying like, oh, well, what are we going to do with the animals? Well, what we're saying is, we're not saying, kill all these animals. We're saying, like, I think vegans have resigned ourselves to the knowledge that the industry is going to kill all of the animals that are alive. Like, they're all dead. We're saying, don't give them an excuse to buy more of them and to keep doing this.
Oh, if we do say that somehow you pass like a legislation to stop the animal getting more bred, do we just continue? Like, are those animals just left to die now? Like, we just how many did you say there were? You said 2.7 trillion or something die every year?
Yeah, 2.7 trillion are killed every single year, but we have about 106 billion land animals.
So do we just kill them?
I thought it was.
I just want to address before that we go on that we do also want to kind of entertain what will likely happen, which is the case that those subsidies will no longer incentivize these industries to oversupply, so overproduce these animals, so that they have an oversupply of things like milk, of things like flesh. And so then you'll see less being bred into existence anyway, and then we wouldn't have that number anyway. Like, because obviously it's not the case that people are going to go vegan overnight. It is going to be this gradual process. So you'll see a phasing out realistically before you'll see any kind of like sudden, okay, we've got 106 billion land animals, let's just kill them all. It is worth noting that's not going to be what's going to happen.
But then you just killed 106 billion over a spread amount of time. Does that make it more morally just?
Well, it's more of the fact that
if we follow your, because I'm assuming you're not vegan. If we follow your system of what we ought to do, what you're doing is committing to 106 billion land animals being killed this year, then next year, then the year after, then the year after that, then the year after, like endlessly.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our scenario, we're saying these ones are condemned to death probably. Can we save some of them? Maybe.
Yeah, you got to remember, like the vegan as well isn't like, I'm not responsible for the animals that have been born, precisely for the fact that I've avoided paying into the industries which is birthing them. That's like, if, with the people that are birthing them, I think that they're responsible for the lives that are going to be taken, and I think they're morally reprehensible for the actions that they engage in, which is exactly why I don't support these industries, so that next year it doesn't happen, as Vegan Gaze said. And as well, like more, like it also stops overfishing, like with fishing in general. When fishing stops, you don't have there's billions of animals that are being killed needlessly, even like through bykill. It is also causing ocean dead zones, habitat collapse, all of this stuff. It's even disrespectful to the workers that work in these industries. If you have any consideration for whether it's humans, animals, or the environment, then being vegan is a necessity.
Okay, so this ties into like another question I have, kind of, but it basically is it just against like over like surplus industrial farm? Because I know that guy before was a little bit, a little crazy, that a little local man essay. But I want to ask, is it wrong to like hunt and things like that? Like you put an animal out of misery, like
But you're not, are
because
you?
I understand that like a large amount of animal being like abused and thing like that in a factory, but when you have like you hunt or like it's not like it's in a forest and you're involved in the ecosystem and it's not extra cruel, because I know factory farming is like cruel in an unnecessary way, but say some guy shoots an arrow and just kills the animal humanely in the way that causes like as minimal suffering as possible, and he sustains himself off of that. Is that a problem, or is that like,
Well, yeah. So
or is it more of a
I'd say it
scam?
was. I'd say it was a problem. So look at it like this: one, not everyone could do it because we would actually massacre all of the animals in the wild. That's why we'll have to produce artificial populations of billions of animals in the first place, right? Because if everyone was hunting, all of this would be would kill all of the animals in nature. Like we would all go extinct.
Well,
We would hunt them.
well, the problem
Uh,
is not human population is not sustainable off of just hunting, because
Yeah.
hunting gathering society is nomadic, right? But we have the domesticated animal and crop and thing like that.
Mhm.
So what I want to add, like, it's not human population isn't sustainable if we just hunt and things like that.
Yeah.
So I guess with emerging technology, it's more sustainable to be vegan. Maybe I'm not so sure
100%.
about the science
It's
behind
actually. I
that.
mean, it's
So
actually.
I'm not saying that you need to have all that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, like, look, it's way more sustainable to be vegan, but I'll get onto that in a second. I mean, just in terms of hunting, I was just saying, like, not everyone could do it. So, like, the small amount of people who could do it, the reason that we're giving them this, we're saying that people can go and do it, is it humane? So, like, let's say someone just goes into the forest and shoots a deer. Like, one, you're not really putting a deer out of its misery, you're just ending its life. A deer's not necessarily miserable. In the farm, like in the wild. So if it's just sort of walking around doing its thing, like shooting it's not putting it out of its misery. You're not like engaged in some sort of mercy killing. A lot of people like to say like, oh well, if I didn't shoot it, it would have got ripped apart by a wolf or something. Well, no, there's going to be another deer that gets ripped apart by a wolf. You've just shot one as well. Otherwise, the wolf will now starve. And so then you then take that corpse and that material, that energy that sustains the ecosystem, then out of that ecosystem, which causes more problems down the line.
What do you mean out of the ecosystem? Because I see it, human are part of the ecosystem.
Oh yeah, but like if you look at it like this, so if let's say I live in like look at this. If I lived in a nomadic hunter-gatherer society, and if I was whatever I eat when I go to the bathroom, that material that is necessary for the growth of plants and the sustenance of the habitat is deposited in my feces, right? Which is why when animals eat the poo, and then the ecosystem kind of goes on as normal, right? But if you go and take an animal and then you go and remove that animal from the environment and you consume it, and then you go to the bathroom, then flush that down the toilet, and that goes into the oceans, it destroys the ocean, but it also takes away the biological material from that habitat, meaning that you've just removed a considerable amount of energy from that ecosystem. And that energy isn't going to be...
I need to have a toilet and put it in the ocean. Like, what if I want to just take the excrement or the waste matter and put it back in the ecosystem by,
so let's
say, like a patch of land, and use that specifically either for harvest or like not monoculture, but a large variety of things, both for the ecosystem and for my nomadic tribe.
It would still, that's the thing, it would still damage the forest or whatever way you got the the animal, right? It would just sustain plants in your area now as well. But like that's just even if we don't like acknowledge that point. You said, is it humane if I humanely kill it? Like when you say humane, like the synonyms of humane are things like compassion, loving. When we talk about humanity and what it means to be humane,
I don't think
it's
that's true. Like if
oh
you
no,
humanely kill someone who their head chop off or like they almost dying. Like I remember my uncle, he in we were in Taiwan. His leg got hold on. I don't know if it my uncle or my grandma, but their leg got cut like by some guy with a hold on.
no
My
problem.
roommate's saying something to me. Hold on. Okay, sorry. Sorry. I live in a house of like 15 people, so it's very difficult for me to like have a moment of silence. I'm sorry.
That's fine,
No,
man.
that's
But
okay. But
I
what
was
you're
just
talking
gonna
about
say,
there,
I
it
was just
sounds
gonna
like you're
say
talking
that.
about I was just gonna say it sounds like you're talking about a situation where you could put someone out of their misery, right? Where it would be humane to take their life from them. Well, there's a lot of things to consider when we talk about humans. We can garner consent, something of that
Oh,
nature, and and
yeah.
and the thing is as well, we're talking about animals we forcibly bred into existence with the purpose of killing them.
Oh,
And
okay, I see.
humane means with compassion and benevolence, and I don't know what's compassion
But I
and
mean, he's talking
benevolence.
about like even like wild animals. That's the thing. Like, so if you talk about like you know when you're saying like compassion or benevolence, that is actually the definition. Like to show compassion or benevolence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it means to consider the interests of the animal. Like, and so like the idea when we say like when we do something humane to someone, let's say like the die in pain, and we say it's more humane to to end their life through euthanasia, then what we're saying is that the continuation of their suffering it needs to end, and that ending their life would be in their interests. But the issue is when we talk about animals, there is no interest. It's not in the interest of the animal to get shot. Do you see what I mean?
I think I see that, but let me ask you this: then, isn't compassion and humanity a construct tied to human being, like as in we're outside the ecosystem? Because that seems like kind of a Eurocentric
And
point of view.
I,
Since for where I'm from, we think of ourselves more in the ecosystem, and we when we hunt, we utilize the animal to full extent, and I think it's kind of difficult to wrap my head around. I have a little struggle understand how human is above that. Like, why are we not in the
well,
web
yeah,
food chain?
but this is the thing. I would say that one, like humans can exist in, and like look, if you look at it like this, like the vegan diet is actually the most sustainable diet. So you can grow crops, and you can grow like a permaculture, for example. And you can eat plant foods in such a way which is very sustainable. When you eat animal products, you are requiring the animals to eat plants, and then you eat the animals. There's an actual like energy deficit to your actions, which is greater, where like there's an energy loss. So if you're looking for something more ecologically sustainable, eating plants makes more sense ecologically. It's actually better for the environment. We could cut down our farmland usage, the use of land in terms of farming, by 70% if we switch to a plant-based diet. We can reduce the amount of greenhouse gases we produce globally by 28% if we went on a plant-based diet, and we can and it also removes the number one cause of deforestation. It removes the number one cause of ocean dead zones. It removes the number one cause of river pollution. A plant-based diet is by and large the place you want to be if you genuinely think that the ecology of the world matters, not a meat-centric diet.
Okay, so now I have another question. Like, if we talk about animal contribute to all this waste, and like, since livestock very difficult to breed, uh, what do we do about the like? Some talk about going on an insect-based diet, like we eat cockroaches and stuff. I mean, I do that kind of, but with also combination of rat, like, cause we don't have too much food over here, but. Say we go on like a cockroach or like a mealworm based diet. I hear that it's very good since it like they compost back into itself and very sustainable. Like, is that like, does that fit in with the lifestyle of a vegan, or is that like a completely different type of thing?
That's a different type of thing. So I would say that, we can grow enough food. Like, so for example, we can grow enough food to sustain a population of 12 billion with the amount of land we actually use at the minute, but we're feeding it to animals, right? If we wanted to, we could eat plants. And I think that if you're able to eat plants, there's no, and you have an access to a variety of, let's say, beans, lentils, and legumes and things like that. There's no reason to eat cockroaches or insects. It's only producing more suffering. Like, those animals actually do feel pain. Like, those insects actually do feel pain. They have a brain, central nervous system.
But isn't it kind of a compromise to like, because I know some people will still want to have that sort of like protein, because I don't know, but I hear maybe because newspaper come by my village and they say like there is going to be like artificial plant based like meat type of thing, but
Mhm.
I saw a lab study where they talk about like eating cockroaches and grubs and like worms and stuff, and they say it's not as bad. Like it can simulate meat very well already, and like it's pretty good, and it doesn't make that much emission or like that sort of thing.
But you could
Because we
just
already
you could
do
just eat
that to
lentils.
feed like all those other animal, and like it already makes like very good fertilizer and like
But,
other type of things.
but
So I'm not so sure.
But this is the thing. You can just eat lentils. So like insects aren't producers anyway. So you're gonna have to feed them some sort of like organic material.
I could,
So but
but
you
by
could just.
eating the insect and I feed them my poop.
But that's the thing. You can't feed them. You're gonna have to have a new input of energy. So like this is the point. Like this is what's the second law. Like it's like the second law of thermodynamics. Like energy can't be
Oh,
created.
I see.
So you'll end up
But
losing it.
what if I couple that with the plant-based diet? Like,
But that's the thing. So, like, why would you need the insects anyway? You could just swap to, like beans, lentils, and legumes, plant-based protein sources. And if you want, you could have like soy meats and stuff. Meat made of soy, like from soy protein, tofu, things like that. And you could live happy and healthy on that without producing any harm. In a way that's a lot of the time ecologically the most sustainable diet in the world. Like you could, a lot of the time these plants can even be carbon negative, like the way that they grow them.
Oh, I do know soy is like good, but like I hear it's good for like transgender people because I have like one of my friends, they want to be more feminine and things like that, but
Oh,
I
no,
don't know
that's a
if this
myth,
is
man.
like right
That's a
scientifically
total.
or not.
That's totally
No,
a
But
myth.
he was
That's totally a
no,
myth.
he was eating like soy thing and like
No.
suddenly she got boob and thing. I don't
No,
know
no,
if
it's
you're
Yeah,
lying to me or
like
not.
if this worked, then the beauty industry would be all over that.
Yeah, could you
It's-
imagine?
it's-
Imagine
it's
if-
phytoestrogens.
Imagine,
Oh.
yeah, imagine
completely
how much they could make if you could give women. If imagine how much soy companies would be worth if
Hell,
women
I'd
ate
buy
them, their
it.
titties got bigger. Like that would.
I'd get
like-
an extra cup or two. Hell yeah.
Like,
Nah,
it's
it
a-
doesn't work like that.
it-
That's
yeah.
disappointing because I was a little excited. I have a bit of gender dysphoria, so I was just wondering about it. But man, now
No.
I'm a little disappointed. I don't know where to get that sort of thing in my country, but that's another topic.
Well, that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
the phytoestrogens in soy, like they actually they actually reduce the likelihood of things like breast cancer and other estrogenic diseases for the reason that they actually are weaker than mammalian estrogens. So they bind to the estrogen receptors in humans, and in breast tissue and in your bones, like in women's women's bones and stuff, and allow for the production of so not the bones, but like I can't remember what actual tissue it is, but they allow for an increase in bone density with a reduction of breast cancer risk in women. But they certainly don't like lower men's testosterone at all. Quite the opposite. They can increase testosterone, but it's only free floating testosterone, so it doesn't increase your so it's not going to make you like more manly anyway. The amount of the amount that your body uses testosterone is to do with your androgen receptors, and the only way you can kind of increase those is like with performance enhancing drugs.
Sorry to interrupt you, but something really bothering me in the voice chat. Like I hear people call me stupid or something. Like English is not a good language for me, so it's a little Eurocentric or like I think a little racist for you or like a little judgmental. I'm just trying my best here because I want to understand like this mindset. Sort of talking about like it's a little rude to me, so I prefer if that like kind of stop.
Yeah, if I spoke a different language, I can't speak any other language. So if I tried to, I would convey myself in
nobody in voice
would
chat
be
is
like
calling you stupid though. You mean like in text chat or
Oh,
something?
in the text chat, yeah,
Right,
they
okay.
calling me a little like a little loopy or loony sort of thing.
I just
Like
ignore
I
them, man.
understand, I got voices in my head or something,
just
but
better
you
to
know,
ignore. It's just better to ignore the chat while you're talking. Like from my point of view.
Yeah. Just I was gonna say like you get trolls and stuff, but yeah, I mean it's been good talking to you, anyways, mate. If you got any questions as well, probably gonna have to move on to the next person because we've been doing this one for a while, but like doing this conversation for a while. But if you got any more questions, just DM with. Hopefully, if you want to try plant-based diet out or something, just if you have any questions, let me know. And just good luck, man. And hope you have a good one.
you.
And by the way, I don't think you're stupid. I'm impressed of anyone that can talk another language. I can't. I'm not bilingual.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not bilingual even close. So.
Nah.
Yeah, no, you're all right. Like just ignore the chat when you're talking. It's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I'll do it. Right, take it easy, man.
I'll next person. Yeah, I wish I could talk another language, but
I need to learn German.
I'm not big brain.
I
want to learn Italian as my first. I like the language so much. But we got debate guy.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. How was your day?
Pretty good. How's yours?
Good. Thanks for asking. Did I get straight to the point?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be brilliant.
My reason of not being a vegan might sound a bit selfish, I would say, but I am a human being that likes the taste of steak, chicken, and etc. Okay, but wait, I still have a debate on this. I personally believe in the food chain. Okay, think about it logically. You think the animals would actually care if they are hungry? Would they let you live, or would they eat you without thinking twice about it for their survival?
Well, look at it. Yeah, I guess the question is, why would we base our behavior off the behavior of, let's say, less intelligent, less capable animals in terms of rationality? Like lions murder and rape each other. Why would I do that? I don't think that's good. So why would I do that?
Well, look, in my opinion, think about it in that way, okay? You are in a room alone, and you need to kill the animal to survive. Would you let yourself starve to death, or would you kill him?
I would kill him. If I was in a room with a human, I would also kill them if I had to. Would you?
It depends, to be honest. If it was a human, it's one of my own species, I would think about it twice.
I would think about it twice always. I'd say like
I would think about his morals. Is he looking forward to kill me just for his survival, or if he's trying to die peacefully?
You're gonna starve, right? Like, so it's like it's you or him. Like that's the end. Like it's the same thing as the animal. It's you or them.
It's my species. We can talk about it. Imagine.
But what's the value to a species?
But debate guy though. Hang on, debate guy. If it's you or them, the human, right? No matter whether or not you think about it twice, do you kill them or let them kill you?
If we're talking to the end, kill him or he kills me or a woman or anything.
Yes.
I would personally kill them.
Exactly. So that's what we're getting to. So just like us, in a survival situation, you would take it upon yourself to self-preserve. However, I don't know how this is applicable to veganism itself, because we are not asking you to sacrifice your life in order to be vegan.
No,
so
I'm not.
Why do you ask this?
I'm trying to ask this because in the end, okay, imagine like vice versa, okay, you and the animal is gonna think to kill you, but as you said, you're gonna try to go more intelligently, but in the end, it's all about survival. It's about the food chain, okay?
Even in that example, the other human was thinking about killing you.
Also,
right? So, because if the survival situation's there, of course they're thinking about self-preservation.
Okay, and as well, like, can I just say, like, I think that it's naive to think of the food chain as a literal chain. It's actually a food web, and when we look at the web, some things have predators, some things don't. Some things are herbivores without natural predators, and so at the end of their food chain, the same way that we would be, like the end of their specific part on a food web. Like, what we've done is created artificial agriculture, which means that we are separate from, let's say, having to, like, I don't have to go into the forest, I don't have to kill anything, I don't have to forage for berries. I can go to a supermarket, buy a packet of tofu, come home, cook it, eat it, and the food web that I'm involved in is agricultural and not natural, right? Like that, and that was an evolutionary advantage to humans, right? So so when you think of it like that, what you're asking is like, what I guess the question to ask is, why ought we place animals into
Sorry,
that
is
relationship?
people gone quiet just for me, or do I need to leave?
Sorry?
I'll
What?
leave.
Oh, I think she's got to rejoin.
Okay.
So yeah, I think this is it, right? Like, why ought we kill animals when we have the choice to do otherwise? Like, why should we impose our preferences upon them when we could choose to do something better, which is express our desires in terms of plant foods, but then also respect their interests?
But to be honest, okay, in my opinion, there's also there's something called also taste, okay? Maybe I don't know, okay? Imagine I'm eating the animal. My opinion of not being a vegan might sound dumb, but I'm just a selfish human being that likes the taste of chicken and steak, like I said. And if I like can maybe I taste good to them, that's why they want to eat me. Same goes to me.
But if humans
Okay?
tasted nice, would that justify eating them?
Yeah, to me that would justify eating them.
See, I would say that as unethical. I would say that you are doing something irrational. I think that the way
Yeah.
that you would be sublimating your desires in society would actually be a lack of sublimation. Your desires would be primitive and self-destructive, and in that you should be condemned, because one, you're either going to lead yourself down to a road in which you feel more pain and misery, but you're also perpetuating your reasoning itself is flawed. So when we talk about whether you should or should not, we are already engaged in an argumentation, right? We're already engaged in a mode of questioning. So when we say, like, what should you eat, what ought you eat, when we talk about these judgments that you are making conform to rationality. So I would say it's irrational for you to eat meat if you're doing it purely for taste. The same way it's irrational for you to kill an animal. It's irrational for you to kill a human. These things are unethical in themselves. So why would we define ethics based on our preferences when they should be based on reason?
At some point, there's gotta become to an opinion. Do you think, for you personally, it is a fact that everyone should turn into a vegan,
Yes,
or is it their own opinion and they
It's a
should
fact.
stick to whatever they want?
it's a fact.
Then why do you think most of the people haven't been changing to vegans yet?
I think that most people are indoctrinated because of our culture. Like, most people see the consumption of animal products as natural, normal, and necessary. They think that they've got to do it, which because they're misinformed. They think that it's normal to do it and that everyone else does it, which is a logical fallacy. And they think that it's a natural behavior, which is also another logical fallacy. I think that people are ideologically indoctrinated to a way of consumption which they are just accustomed to, and then try to defend that mode of consumption because they don't know otherwise. And so what I'm here to do, and what Vegan Gates is here to do, is try to educate people on the alternative actions that they can make.
And question: do you think that they are not becoming vegans just because they're sticking to what their ancestors used to eat, steak, without
Well,
being taught?
different people have different arguments, but most of the time
I
it
would
is.
say, it's more just because people are they're destined to like follow their habits. Really, they'll generationally speaking, they'll do what they're taught to do, and it's rare in the scheme of things that people will kind of act outside of that. It takes quite a long time for things, even when there's a moral incentive to do so, to actually change. Like, it's just habit. Like, we literally right now are facing an issue where it's habit for people to do destructive things to the very planet that actually like maintains our existence, and we just can't get out of those habits. So I think it's habit over a lot of things, and just being socialized into it.
That's applied to loads of stuff as well. Like that was exactly the same with whether it's women's rights. Many women didn't even were against women's liberation movements because they didn't understand that position in society. if these movements were to be effective, if they were to be given the vote. They didn't understand how they would deal with the responsibility. It went against what they were accustomed to. You had house slaves and stuff that were accustomed to slavery in terms of habit and didn't necessarily understand what to do with liberation in terms of the ending of slavery. This isn't necessarily it was in their interests in all of these cases, yet they didn't even do it then, even when it was in personal, sort of egoistic interests, because they weren't accustomed to, an alternative way of life. And I think that's one of the things that we'll kind of try and do as well, is try to tell people not just why they should go vegan, but how to live vegan.
Yeah, but I also think that, okay, I don't think that everyone will turn vegan. Do you know why? Because not all, like, when it became to women having rights, what happened? They put a word for themselves. They put a word on and talk to everybody to make them understand. But the animals don't have a word for themselves. They need others to speak for them, since they
They got
clearly
us.
cannot understand us. And I think that they will never be able. It will never be able for everyone to be vegan.
Well, animals have a voice, and you can listen to them scream. When they get killed, and that there's videos of that online. And I think that what vegans often do is, play that screaming to other individuals in the street through, show the brutality of what we're doing. We show the truth. A lot of the time in like Cube of Truth events, or like Anonymous for the Voiceless and stuff like that. And other forms of activism. So I think the imagery and a picture's worth 1,000 words in that respect. I also think that with vegans representing animals, I think that it is no different to animals representing themselves in many ways. Like, women needed the help of men when they were fighting for liberation. The aid of men actually supporting women's liberation was vital to that success. It's the same thing with Black civil rights movements needing the support of white Americans and white British people and white Europeans in general and so on to engage in these forms of to actually succeed in liberation. So it's not necessarily like just because animals
Is PP talking?
I am
Might be my
talking.
end.
Yeah, he is talking.
Oh, sorry. I'll leave again and come back.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
So like I think that this can happen without animals actually speaking up for themselves in terms of having like some sort of spoken word. But then it is being successful. Like 7% of Israel's vegan, up to 7% of the UK's vegan in some statistics. We're seeing growth in our society now in relation to veganism.
Yeah,
Also, there's massive corporate interests in veganism now. So we've got capitalist enterprises pushing for veganism. So like in terms of power structures, I think that veganism is inevitable. I don't think that I think that in reality, that the power systems of our society are going to push veganism, and I just want to help it along its way. I'm going to be right back, by the way.
Can I continue?
Yeah, no, continue away.
I was gonna say too, you need to remember that that humans are also selfish human beings that want pleasure for themselves. When it became to women having rights, they don't get any pleasure from them not having rights. Same goes to slavery. Same goes to many other stuff that happen. But when it comes to animals, they have our pleasure by giving us accessories. Imagine gloves. Imagine carpets. Pleasure by the design.
Hang on,
Pleasure by
no,
the
that
taste.
wait. It's not the case. Like, even so, say with women's rights, for example, that you could argue that there would have been derived pleasure from exploiting women in that way and having dominance over them and being able to use them in such ways and abuse them. So that a pleasurable utility could be derived from that. So it's not the case. We are talking about something a little different where we're having to speak on their behalf a lot, but it is the case that they are expressing that they do not wish to be exploited and do not wish to be killed. It's just not in a language that we understand,
Yeah.
and it's a language that we belittle. That's the only real difference. But yeah, as PP was saying, there is allyship between these movements, and people work in tandem to get that. And we are seeing that moral consideration being granted to animals, more so than ever.
Oh, and I want to ask something. Did you?
Yeah.
I like to understand people before I start talking because it's not nice to talk without knowing what someone's on about. Well, I want to ask, did you turn vegan for the animals' salvation, or is it because just you wanted to be more healthy?
Yeah, it was just for the animals. I didn't even know that it was actually healthy to do. I went
Oh,
vegan 7 years ago. There wasn't as much information or like products available when I first went vegan. I've seen a massive change in the information and the products available now. But yeah, it was purely for the moral considerations
oh,
of other animals. Yeah, and I
I
think it was the same for people.
yeah,
But I don't know what.
I personally would not turn into a vegan just for the sake that I'm selfish. I was born selfish. I am selfish.
Why do you want to why that like would you want someone being selfish in the sense that they violate your rights and your autonomy?
Yeah,
Because if you were the victim, you wouldn't accept this at all, would you?
no, of course not. But
No,
I'm
you wouldn't.
how
No.
I was born on the top of the food chain, and I was born on top of it where I rule over anybody. And if I can
So
get
you
pleasure,
believe in might makes right. So if
yeah,
someone has the ability to do something, then they're justified in doing so.
yeah, because it's their
So
right.
you know that that logic would lead to like the reverse of women's rights or
No, but
LGBTQ rights.
I think there's a limit.
Like,
I think there's a limit to every.
okay,
every
where is the limit?
I'm talking the limit where the our own species turns on each other. That's the limit. Uh,
Why?
because if the same species turns on each other, we're not gonna have our rule over everyone anymore, and everyone's gonna go rogue.
I don't know what you mean when you say that.
As
Because
in rogue?
it's the case that humans haven't in most cultures don't have like equal rights to begin with. We still exploit others based upon class, based upon it depends obviously what country or culture we're referring to, but you know, each one has its own struggle where people aren't treated equally. You could make the
Yeah,
case for that. And
but it's
it's
not
so
everyone.
this kind of rogue society thing would arguably already exist, right? So
Yeah.
we do turn on each other. And, you know, you talk, you know, about natural systems. You know, you're talking about the food chain and everything. Well, it is a natural system to kind of turn on each other.
Uh, can you explain by that? What do you mean?
Wait, can I just
Yeah,
ask
so like
quickly? Hi guys, by the way, I
yeah,
just want to
sorry,
know. Can
PP.
I just ask what you meant? Did someone say something about rights?
No.
Because I heard you said rights, didn't you? There, vegan guys.
I might have, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to know. I just want
I don't know in what context you're talking about.
because you
Sorry.
said. Sorry, it's fine. It's fine. I just thought I heard something about rights, and I just piqued me interest. Sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the being violated because he was saying a might makes right. So I was just trying to
Oh, might makes
explain that,
right.
like, well, that would lead to you know,
Absurdity.
women's rights being violated, and yeah.
I mean, it
And
would
then
lead.
what did you say? in
What do you mean
response?
by
Can't
might
remember,
makes
sorry.
right?
Me?
What?
Did he say might make? Did you say might makes right? Debate guy.
I said, do you believe in might makes right?
Oh,
And he
right.
said,
Okay.
well, I'm selfish. I was born on top of the food chain, so I can. So I said, like, then do you believe that because you have the power to do so, that you ought do so? And debate guy, you said yes, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my limitations come to like I personally wouldn't kill the animal. I'm I'm a I'm a fucking softie.
You
Okay,
just
I
pay
can't.
someone else. Well, you're not
Yeah.
really a softie if you're going to pay someone else to do it. You're paying a hitman,
Right, you
so it's
can-
not really a soft thing.
I guess
no
yeah,
soft
but you're
boy
arguing
pays
for.
a hitman.
That's the thing. But you're arguing for like, are you an ethical egoist? Like, do you believe that everyone does what's in their own selfish interests?
That also comes to a limit. In my opinion, everything comes to a limit, okay? Like my selfish rights, I cannot go and kill you just for because you made me mad, you know? That's crossing the limits of what's like the limit of what you can do. There's limits to something, but I
Where,
think that killing
where do these limits
something,
come from? Is what I'm kind of asking. Like, what are these limits? Where do they come from? What do you mean? Like, so like you could go and do it, right? Like you could go outside and like stab someone in the neck or something, right? And they'd be
yeah,
dead, right? Like you've killed
yeah.
someone. Now is the limit imposed because it's breaking the law and you'll go to prison and so you'll suffer like some sort of punishment, or is the limit that there is something actually wrong about doing
No,
that.
it's actually wrong.
It's actually wrong. Why is it actually wrong?
Oh, it's because it's above my limitations. I don't
But
have the.
so
I don't.
see what I
It's
mean?
like not having manners to
See what
do.
I see? So
Can I just the bit that you missed, PP, when we went through this debate, guy said, "Well, it's my limitations when it's within humans, because if we go after our own humans, then the world would go rogue." You said, debate guy, and then that's when I started talking about women's rights again, because I was talking about how we do treat each other differently based upon certain like aspects, you know, like class, like, you know, women, like sex, gender, everything like that. Like they arguably, you could make the case that we still have that, and this rogue society is already in existence.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
think the rogue society is at a limit. They don't go and hurt people because of that. They
But-
have a limit. Why? Because
but-
there's someone above them,
What's-
someone that rules them.
yeah. So what is a rogue society? What's wrong with a rogue society? Is what I'm asking.
Oh, a rogue society is where everyone does whatever he wants. Like imagine
Yeah.
I can go just kill you for
What's
because
what's
you
wrong
let
with
me
that?
out
Is
and-
what I'm saying. Like why?
Oh.
What's wrong with it?
It's so wrong. It's just when you think about it, it's wrong. As a human, if I think about it, I think someone's sick in the head for
That's the
doing
thing. I agree.
but
I'm
how?
thinking about
How?
it. I'm thinking about it right now. I want you to tell us, like, okay, I don't see what's wrong with it. Could you explain why it's wrong?
What's wrong with killing someone?
Like, what's wrong with a society in which everyone kills each other and all that sort of stuff?
It's your same species. You can't go on and kill everyone.
But they
It's
can.
your
Yes,
same
I mean, people do. People do. So, I mean,
yeah, of course people do, but these people are mentally ill.
but what makes them mentally ill? Like, and two, like, even if they are mentally ill, why ought they not do it? Like, so why ought we not be mentally ill? And like, I don't think you don't necessarily have to be mentally ill to kill people. I think there are
Yeah.
there are sane people who kill people. They're just bad people. But like, let's say people who, like, it seems like you want to put like an implicit value judgment where you go, well, wait a minute, there's just something wrong with it. I'm asking what that thing is. What makes it wrong?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I cannot explain it. It's just wrong.
Okay, I think I can. Okay, because I think when you go and harm other people and you do that to your own species, you've associated yourself with that other person. You see in them value. You because you see the same value that you experience, that evaluation in your life, in them, and that's
But
an
the value-
ethical.
yeah, but-
That's an ethical
when-
relationship with
sorry.
them. And I think that means like, so when you talk about your own identity, when you even say the words I, it's in respect to someone else who
Yeah.
that word also obtains to. You're an individual of a collective.
Yeah, and you just said the word for me. Values. The values, personally, for me, to animals, is food.
But this
As
is
in, I mean,
this is the thing. You say values for you. Well, the value for a human, for the value of a human for a murderer is for stabbing, right? Right.
Yeah.
No, but the point is I would say they were being irrational because because the like what is valuable, like objectively, is not what my preferences are. It's what is actually experientially valuable. So when I stab someone, they feel pain, or if I help someone who's starving, I alleviate their pain. And the same thing applies to animals. When I help an animal, they feel pleasure. When I harm an animal, they feel pain. They have interests. And that's what makes them valuable. We all have the same inherent value. All sentient beings do. So whether you have preferences for killing them or not, I would say that you would be wrong for killing them because you are undermining the value that exists subjectively within that animal.
But you're talking subjectively using your feelings. I'm talking logically.
No, I'm not. I'm talking
Yeah,
logically.
survival.
I'm not. I'm talking logically. So I would say that in terms of when we use the word value, or terms like good and bad, right? What they are, when we talk about value judgments, they're judgments based on a process which implies what's called a means ends relationship where an individual tries to satisfy some sort of inherent drive or some sort of drive towards to gain some sort of satisfaction, some sort of experience. So this would be, we all experience the positivity of pleasure. We all experience the negativity of pain, and the evaluation of our relationship with the world is what we then use to construct words like good. So when I go to somebody, I'm like, this is good, and I point to my own pleasurable experience, but then they return and go, no, this is bad, you are hurting me. Then the word falls to a point of contention where we can recognize that my judgment of what is good and your judgment of what is good can contradict each other. But the word itself obtains to both fundamental experiences. So the word good can't mean what it means. Like we can't be talking about the same thing.
Wait, doesn't good come from having feelings to be good?
Well, I would say that it comes from the judgment of whether we are actually whether our behaviors will actually result in positive circumstances. So, like, for example, you could have a judgment of, like, for example, I could say that something was good even if it hurt me because it was beneficial for the expression of my identity. So, like, I saved my child from a burning building, but I'm a little bit hurt. I'll make it's good that I saved my child, regardless of it actually hurting me, right? But
I want to ask you a question. I don't know this. I'm asking you, okay?
Yeah.
Does hurting animals affect the planet?
Well, I mean, right now it does. I mean, we'll get onto that in the ecological points in a second, but what I'm saying in terms of meta-ethics, these are like questions about ethics.
Yeah.
I would say that ethics is objective. I would say that when we talk about these, like what is valuable, if we are being honest, when we try to understand ourselves, when we reason out like this experience that we have, we reason out we reason ourselves out to be individuals precisely because we recognize universal values. So I understand that a universal exists. And if I understand that animals and myself are both part of this fundamental, this universal that exists in nature, then the value that exists in an animal is just as valuable as the animal that exists, the value that exists in me. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And I just want to say that everything you're talking about now, I personally think that you're including feelings into it. To you, it's like factual facts, but to me, I think about everything logically. If I need this to pleasure my taste buds and just have more protein or anything, I take it.
But how is that more logical? Like, so what I would accuse you of is assuming egoism and individualism. I would say that you aren't thinking logically, or you aren't thinking rationally. I would say that you're assuming what you are, what will be in the benefit of you, and what is beneficial and right in general. So you think you're coming to justified conclusions when actually you're justifying your conclusions with presuppositions. You're saying this will make me feel good, and what feels good is good. I'm calling into question your presuppositional position. Why what is good for you is good in general. And I think that there isn't an argument to be made there, because what you exist, your understanding of self, can only be understood as part of a collective value that exists in all others. That's what allows you to be a determinate individual, for you to go I, me, and not someone else. You've already recognized the existence of that value in someone else for you to even be able to prescribe it to yourself.
But because you're saying that, someone told me that someone DM'd me private and said I'm stupid. Do you think my debate is stupid?
I don't think that you're being stupid. I think that this is a common mistake for people to make in terms of meta-ethics. So no, I don't think you're stupid.
Oh, okay. I just wanna I'm stupid. I mean the debate. What I'm trying to debate with you, if it's stupid or not.
No, I think it's incredibly important. I think that these debates need to happen. I think that if you don't question your beliefs, then we're condemned to dogmatism, right?
Yeah. But also I think that everything that happens, as in like killing, is an opinion based on what the guy wants. It's not, I mean, yeah, in your opinion, for you in your mind, it's a fact that everyone needs to change. But in my opinion, that everyone have like your what you're talking about is an opinion to yourself that everyone should change because of these facts. But I'm talking my opinion. I shouldn't change because of the fact that I'm getting pleasure from it.
But then you're assuming that your pleasure justifies your action. And I'm calling that assumption into question.
I guess you're right.
We will have to wrap this one up. It's been nearly 28 minutes,
Oh,
debate,
okay.
guys. That's okay, but yeah, I'd say it's less lack of intelligence that's being conveyed, and more these conversations really don't actually happen.
Yeah.
So the first time you're introduced to a genuine question of, oh, you want to consider other animals as well, we kind of are filled with.
I tried arguing against it. I tried arguing against veganism. Like before I went vegan, I was in like.
I was like,
yeah.
well, we need to eat animals. Like, you know, nature though. Like animals do. I wasn't even thinking while I was saying it. I was just saying it because I heard it. We parrot more often than we like to think we do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But if you can, I mean, if you want to ever talk again, if you consider yourself, you're saying you're like a rational person and like you have rational arguments and like positions on this. If you want to consider your position logical and you ever want to debate philosophically, then I'm always happy to debate.
Okay. But first, I need to do my research because I don't know anything fully about vegan. I just saw this and I went in directly into the debate. I usually do my research and then talk about it.
100%.
Yeah, that's the best way. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think people think that they can come in and talk about it because it's so ridiculous. Because from an outsider's perspective, it does seem like that. It seems like you wouldn't even need the research because it's just based on this. But no, we do need to extensively look.
Yeah, of course.
We're learning stuff every day, and I've been vegan for 7 years, so.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for chatting to us today.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Take it easy, man. Bye.
Right, I have been streaming for 4.5 hours, so I've got time for about one more person, and then I've got to kind of like hop off. So I'm assuming you'll just carry on, you know, defeating.
I'll probably do the one more, and then I'll probably go off to my own stream and talk to my audience. So guys in chat, I do see you. I'm sorry. I do want to engage with you. I'm sorry.
I'm going to engage with mine as well. We're so sorry. We neglect when we do this.
Yeah, it is part of neglect. My audience are probably like, R.D. Lang argues that neglect at childhood can lead to schizophrenia. If that's true, then my audience of totally had a psychotic break by now.
They object permanence has not changed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're just not here.
Yeah, so we'll get to the people who are in the queue. We understand you're in the queue. You won't get ready to talk to us probably, except the last person, but we will ensure that other people come in so the stage can continue and you can get your voice heard. So thank you very much for being in the queue. I will make sure there are replacements. Hello.
Okay.
Oh, you're right.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, man.
How are you?
Okay, let's just have a civil discussion about philosophy.
No, I'm ready to fight.
I just want
about philosophy. I'd love to talk philosophy. What can I do you for?
I have no idea about meta ethics. Okay, I'm so lost in it because I don't understand it. Okay, so the basic argument, what my meta ethical and normative framework is, I don't think it's important. Let's just say I consider everything that's a person. So my argument would be, why aren't animals people, or why do animals not have personhood? And I would just make a social contract theory approach.
Okay, so the first thing I'd say is personhood, like presuming the value of personhood without a social contract. So the idea of social contract is not to say that personhood's valuable, but that you actually are valuable to yourself. You're assuming an egoistic, understanding of self. And because of that, you seek to satisfy your ends in the world. And so engage in a contract with other people for a benefit of mutual advantage, right? Like for mutual gain.
Correct.
Yeah. So what I would say is that to engage in contracts, you've already presumed that an individual has ethical value and the capacity to sign contracts. You've actually already assumed that they have the same capacities as you, and so you've already engaged in ethics. You're already in an ethical relationship with them. You've already
Yes.
given them ethical weight. You've already presumed that they have value in themselves and that they have an obligation to you, which is to fulfill the side of the contract, and that they're capable of a deontological approach to ethics. So I think that social contract is that the point of a social contract is unnecessary. We aren't engaged in social contracts because we already recognize individuals as valuable prior to entering them. Definitionally, that's Hegel's argument against social contracts.
Oh God, that's way too deep. Holy shit. Okay. What I would probably say is we don't have to recognize the approach of a social contract because if I don't have the capacity to disprove what you said, I could just ignore it and go from a different direction by saying I only let's go the egoist perspective. I only value things that are able to bring pleasure, the egoist experience. So only things that are able to understand me and are able to go with the social contract in another form are able to satisfy me, so I only consider them as beings that deserve more consideration.
But that's the argument, isn't it? The idea that you would have to recognize that they can recognize you, or that you'd have to recognize that they have something that you can recognize as either that has a value relationship with the world. So you'd have to recognize that they could be punished. You have to recognize that they are having negative values, and you'd have to see the exact same concept that exists in yourself within them. So you have to mirror your understanding of self to what they are, and that is what's called otherness. So then you've already applied the concept of otherness to them, and when we talk about whether otherness is valuable, what we have to ask is, well, is the self valuable? Okay, if the self is valuable and the other also has a self, then they are valuable.
Well, I don't agree with that one.
Why?
Well, I don't know where they are valuable, but their own they value themselves the way I value myself, but that doesn't mean that I have to value them in the same way I value myself.
Well, I would say that you are being irrational if you weren't, because their understanding of what they are and what you are the same thing.
Yeah, but
so your judgment should apply both to them and yourself.
I disagree.
So the only thing that you could argue is that what you actually value is the moment of satisfaction. You don't value yourself, you value your satisfaction. I think that this leads to some issues. This isn't even egoism then, that's hedonism. If you were to argue for a hedonistic perspective that all I value is pleasure, and all I care about is pleasure and pain, then I would say that you wouldn't be able to engage in ethics. You would actually lack the ability to regulate whether you should obtain one pleasure over another, or one pain, or avoid certain pains. You would only do that which was immediately presented to you. It would be intuitional, and it would be impulsive. It would be animalistic, in fact. But for the reason that you're actually engaged in this discussion, you can see that there is a value in knowledge of your desires. You can see that understanding yourself and self-association is valuable, because when you apply that same value to another person, you gain the possibility of understanding yourself through their judgment. You can say that actually they understand me as the other, and they can see that I have values also. And so relying upon their judgment of you gives you the possibility of self-knowledge and self-consciousness, the possibility of an identity. And I would say that is why egoists often argue, well, not even egoists, rather, that's why ethics is valuable in and of itself. Because once I gain self-knowledge, even if I was arguing for a selfish basis, my application of this concept univocally to all that it applies allows for the possibility of self-satisfaction and the avoidance of self-pain to a much greater extent.
Okay. Could you explain to me what's the difference in approach between an egoist and an hedonist?
So I would say that a hedonist only values the content of their experience based on that experience itself, like the moment they are having, whilst an egoist would judge it by a principle or a standard relating to their life and the narrative that they exist in. So they'd be like, okay, like a hedonist might take heroin because it feels good, whilst an egoist would not take heroin because they would realize that at a later date it will cause them pain, and that pain is not worth the pleasure that it's causing now.
Isn't that the same thing? Isn't that like one isn't hedonist just an egoist which only thinks about short-term experiences?
So yeah, well, we'll actually get onto that in a second, but that's the difference between what's called that's a rational egoist. So you can sip like a hedonist in that respect could be an egoist that's an irrational egoist, and then you can have a rational egoist.
Okay, but why am I not a rational egoist?
Well, I'm saying that a rational egoist would require the application of self to otherness, so that they can gain one, self-knowledge from mutual psychological recognition. So when I look at another person, when I engage in discourse with that other person, I can gain, I associate myself with a universal concept. So for example, like humanity, when I understand myself as a human, I gain knowledge of what will cause me pain and pleasure based off what causes other people pain and pleasure, that same concept. And in its application, I gain a insight into how to live my own life. Because if I see that smoking can cause cancer because other people have experienced cancer, and I gain knowledge over myself and in my environment. But I also I'm also dependent upon another's judgment of their environment. So I'm dependent upon their judgments of pain and pleasure. I'm dependent upon their value judgments. And I have to internalize those value judgments for me to gain any self-knowledge in the first place. Mm-hmm. So when I'm talking about an ego, or when I'm talking about an individual, I'm already talking about the mediation between myself and another. I'm already talking in a collective sense. I'm an individual of a group, not an individual or a particular just wandering around aimlessly kind of going on. I have an identity, and that identity associates me with other individuals, not in a way that obligates me to them because I can use them as a means to an advantage, but because the judgment, the unilateral judgment that we have made is what exists, is the rational judgments that we apply to our lives for self-satisfaction. This is what reason is. It's universal judgment, objective judgment. And if I'm being objective about my judgments, then I can see that this same concept applies to animals as well as humans. This notion of selfhood applies to animals and not humans. So when you talk about personhood and the ability to sign contracts, I would ask you, why should that be valuable? That's begging the question. There is nothing inherently valuable in that. But in selfhood, there is something inherently valuable, and animals have selves.
Okay. I don't understand why selfhood in itself is valuable.
Okay, so... Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, so... Would you say that you are valuable?
It's such a... in what context?
Like, do you think that, like, your life has value? Like...
That's my inherent objective?
Like, yeah, well, like, I think an egoist is an objectivist. Like, they're a form of objectivist. Subjectivists aren't egoists. Like, so, like, if you're looking at, like, someone like Thomas Hobbes or Ayn Rand, the moral objectivists. Like, they believe that, like, there is a value in the ego. Like, it makes value judgments inherently. It cannot help but desire what it desires. And because of that, there is an implicit judgment that there is an immediate necessary judgment in terms of evaluation. So the egoists are not subjectivists. So if you're an egoist, you're an objectivist anyway. So I'm asking you, are you valuable? Is anything valuable?
Is anything valuable? God, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I have to agree that I myself am valuable. Yeah, I have to agree. Yes.
Okay. And what is the concept of I? What is it?
What is the concept of I?
Yeah.
Is this a personal question?
Like, what do we mean when we say I?
I can't explain what. I have no idea.
So I would say when we say I, we mean a differentiation between ourselves and another of shared, of a collective identity. I am individuated, right?
Yes.
And so that means I've already self-associated with that other. There is me, and then there is you. Okay? So there is something about us that we share, that we recognize that we share, that allows us to both, I share this characteristic with you, but I am an individual with this characteristic. Like, this is an individual table. That is an individual chair. But that is a universal concept that exists in the individual chair, in the individual table. What makes them a table or a chair is a shared universal characteristic that all of the tables and chairs share.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that, we have a universal concept. That universal concept of self, which I apply to my experiences, allows me to make value judgments as a rational agent. I'm able to not just be motivated by impulses, I'm able to apply principles which will allow me to gain what is a good life. If I'm trying to obtain that which is a good life, then if I engage rationally, I can see that if I reason out what exists in my senses and what exists in your senses and what exists in everyone's senses, then I can gain a rational notion to how to live a good life to the best possible way. And since all of our judgments are considered in terms of what we are evaluating, the universal concept of self that we are trying to maximize is a universal and not individual. And so when I apply this concept individually, which is what we share, it is the concept of subjectivity. And so we are all valuable, trying to evaluate our lives in such a way to live a good life, and the judgment of what a good life is determined by a univocal judgment, a universal judgment, which rationally obtains all members of that collective.
I completely agree. I there was nothing I could disagree with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I don't see where it leads me into considering the individuality of other people. Just because, like, I can look at other people and gain knowledge and learn about myself and how to live a good life. But I don't see why I should, in this respect, in this aspect, consider their happiness as well.
Well, it's more of like if you...
Yeah, sorry. So sorry. I'm just going to have to go and address my stream because I've got to be somewhere at 9. But thank you so much for having me, and someone will come in soon. And salads.
Thanks very much, Vegan Gaze. It's nice as always. Take it easy. Right. So what I was saying there is essentially... if you start with an individual or a particular notion, like an assumed notion of what's in your interests, then you are asserting a point of self-knowledge, which would be self-justifying, right? Like X is good, and so when I obtain X, this is good. It would be circular. The only way that this could be rationally deductive is whether we reason out whether X is actually good. So we don't start with an individual notion, like we don't start with what is good for me as an individual is good. The question is, what is good and how can I obtain it? And that's how we can live a good life. So when we apply these notions to ourselves, the only way that we can rationally endorse a notion as being good or bad or right and wrong is if all members of a community, whether it would actually be right or wrong or good or bad for every universally. That is essentially what we are attempting to obtain. The only way that I can gain knowledge of the self in this respect is to include every ontological instantiation of the self. Do you see what I mean? The self is not an individual. It's a collective. It's a universal. That's the point.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is... Oh god, I can't rephrase. Holy shit. Okay, so what I value is conscience, is my conscience, and the ability to feel happiness, leading a good life. And because I share this value with every other being that is conscious, blah 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 blah. That's why because we have to find what is good in itself. We have to find the meaning in leading a good life.
Think of it like this: you don't start with consciousness. You don't start with your individual consciousness. Consciousness itself is a universal that exists in
I
all
don't know if
sentient-
that's true.
Well,
I don't know if that's true.
Well, it's more of the fact that when we when we think of what we are, we exist as a conscious. Even if we are a single conscious being, right? Acting independently of other conscious beings. What we actually are is conscious, right? Like when we describe it, we describe it as an individuation, an instancing of consciousness. When you are trying to understand that consciousness, when we try to understand consciousness in that respect, which is what we are, we can't simply look to ourselves. We can't simply look to a single instancing of consciousness, because then we are going to we'll fall to our own biases. We won't see the truth of the world. We'll engage in impulses and stuff like that. Put forks in plug sockets and that sort of stuff. But also, we wouldn't have been rational. We wouldn't actually understand the being of what we are, the universal of what we are. We'll understand. If we're lucky, we will partially understand that universal. So if we truly want our own selfish satisfaction, that exists in collective good. That's why the ancient Greeks would have said virtue and happiness are the same thing.
Okay. I think it's just too high for me. Okay. I think I'm not able to understand it in English. I can't explain many things in English, so I think I will have to do a lot. Now I have to do a lot of research about meta-ethics. I hate meta-ethics. That's why I just said, oh yeah, egoism, it's okay, and then we go into normative ethics because you can think about normative ethics. But in my experience, you always get lost in the weeds if you try to do anything about meta-ethics.
Meta-ethics is hard, but I think that this is the thing, right? Like, you can even just, look, if you're not willing to engage in ethics, I think your social responsibilities and your duties inform you of your actions. If you're just rational about what your duties that exist are, then you don't need to enter meta-ethics and start trying to, reinvent the wheel. Just rely upon the ethics that exist in the state. And, what we've found in the state is look, we have institutions about welfareism. We have institutions involved in terms of considering animals and animal rights laws. We already respect animals. So if we already do respect animals and we already have obligations to animals, then we can see that if we are being rational to those obligations, then we should aim to minimize animal suffering to the smallest possible degree, which means or consider animals to the greatest possible degree, which means not consuming them, right?
Well, I would agree that this would apply to 99% of the population, but I really don't care. That's the problem.
You have a duty. It's not about whether you care or not. It's your duty. You're obliged.
A duty towards whom?
Yourself.
A duty towards myself. I don't know where this duty comes from.
Duty. It comes from the immanency of nature. It's the same place that all duty comes from.
Yeah, but I don't understand why I have this duty.
Well, I mean, I just gave you a very long explanation of why. But,
no, it's okay.
I know. But if you're interested, look up Hegelian philosophy, and you'll see why. So Hegelian ethics.
I hate you. Now I have to research this.
I would recommend a reader's guide. Hegel's really hard.
Okay, wait. A reader's guide.
Yeah, a reader's guide. So if you're interested in Hegelian ethics, I would recommend David Rose's Reader's Guide to the Philosophy of Right.
Philosophy of Right. Okay, thanks. I
And
hate you.
and
now.
no,
Fuck
it's
you.
okay. And if you're interested in animal ethics, I would recommend Tom Regan's The Case for Animal Rights, and I would recommend Peter Singer's Animal Liberation.
Thanks. I will consider it, and now I have to do a lot of research, but it's okay.
No problem.
I thank you for your cause. I think we will be vegan all one day because holy shit, it's actually fucked. But thank you for the conversation.
Thank you very much. Take it easy.
Yeah. I hope you have a good day.
You too.
See ya.
Bye. Right. Hello, Rexy.
Hello.
I'm probably gonna bounce and talk to my audience because they've been waiting for me to engage with them for this whole time, and I've been talking. So, are you guys taking over, or?
Yeah, I should be here for a while.
Oh, right, sweet. So, I'm gonna leave you guys to it. Good luck. I hope you have a good time, and thank you everyone for watching. If you want to see more content by me, check out Perspective Philosophy on YouTube. I do this stuff all the time. So, anyway, guys, good luck with your activism, and take it easy.
Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to quickly do a Q&A for a bit before I bounce. How are you all doing? Have you enjoyed these vegan debates, these vegan discussions and stuff? Am I going too far with, like, I feel like this is the thing, right? People come into like debates and meta ethics, right, straight away. So they're like, well, like, what's valuable is what's egoistically valuable. And I really feel like I could have just went, well, you know, animal agriculture is perpetuating the self-destruction of the species, or and habitat and zoonotic disease risk and so on like that. And I probably should have done that. But at the same time, I'm like, egoism is wrong. The books of what I said, yeah, like, check out David Rose. One second, actually, I'll write it in chat. Actually, just check out me book recommendations in the description. I don't know why I'm typing this out. Just check out my book recommendations in the description. Good chat, Sweet Pea. Your subjectivity was expressed to the greatest extent. Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The goal of life. Michael Askew donated £15 and he said, calm, informed, top tier activism. PP, thanks. I appreciate it. Oh my god, I just deleted the chat. Sorry about that. I was just trying to put on the alert box. One thing, if you're deficient in and trying to reduce muscle loss, the protein/kg of lean body mass does go up to the point in which it is 1.5 grams per kg of body weight. All right, it improves muscle retention. Yeah, I think I said 1.1 to 1 gram of lean mass. I think that's as high as it goes, and I think that's probably around the same conversion because obviously kilograms versus pounds. But yeah, PP went too deep. Absolutely, that's it, isn't it? Just, but yeah, like I always do this. This is a problem. I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Just going like the full philosophy, like this is irrational and this is why you're wrong, or do you think like and this is why it's irrational? Do you know what I mean? Or do you think I should go the more like layperson friendly approach and just be like, and this is why your own philosophy it leads you to veganism? I think that maybe I should do that, but then people like sometimes just go, well, I don't care about other like people when I die. It's all about me and you know, and I can't have that. I can't have that. Oh, can you understand the logic and like you're not too educated and you can understand the logic in the discussion? It's very informative to hear it broken down so simply. Oh, thank you, man. I sometimes feel like I'm talking like an absolute foreign language. I really try to make this simple, but it's I have the greatest respect now for the people that write those readers guides and shit, because those people must be like so well educated to be able to break down something which is so complex into some like really basic words and like really basic concepts. And I never really appreciated this until I'm trying to do it and I'm like, oh my god. Layperson friendly is wildly better. Probably. I think you're probably right, Synth. But it's nice to see you here, by the way. But at the same time, I feel like I think I should probably do that first and then wait for them to give us an argument, like, which requires us to kind of argue against the meta ethic. Maybe that's the way I should do it. I have a lot of debates with anti-natalists on the channel, man. I like to think I'm a patient person, Andres. I do. I like to think I'm a patient person. If I can do, there's some people that I've dealt with that are really test your patience, and some people like can just take the actual piss. If I'm honest, but I think I can deal all right with them. And if I can deal with like some of the people that I've debated, like fascists or like I think Infrared actually wasn't as bad as I've seen him in other people's conversations. Like there are some people that are like I've debated worse, I think. Like, so I'm improving. I'm actually doing this with the sole purpose of improving, right? I've thought like there was a study done, right, of people who were doing pottery courses, and in one course they would make one pot, but it would be stretched across the whole month, right? And in the other course, they would make a pot a day. And the people who made a pot a day improved considerably more than the people who made one pot for the entire month. And so it was a point of saying, like, if you, rather than trying to perfect a given piece of work, if you just make more and more, a greater quantity of work, you'll actually become better at it. It was you, Laura, who told us about this. So you can actually thank all of this content that you're receiving now. It's all Laura who's doing it. And if it is getting better, then it is also Laura, and definitely not me at all. I have nothing to do with it. But she's the reason for it. So the idea, I was like, I'm going to do this every day for 30 days. I haven't managed to do it every day for 30 days. But I've been doing it a lot. I think there was someone. I think there was someone that I had to talk to. I'm seeing if they can come on. If they're there. Oh, right. No, they're busy, right? Okay. I'm trying to see if the other person, because I promised a few people that they could come on if I was doing conversations as well. I know Infrared thinks he wins every debate, but he doesn't really. But the thing is that, like, Infrared, to be fair, presented some points which I think actually, I'm not going to lie, I think I hadn't really thought about it. I went and checked it out, and I think, like, so for example, I've come to a new position in terms of Hegelian philosophy after debating Infrared, because I double checked some of the arguments I was making. I think I was reading a little bit too much Heidegger into Hegel. I've corrected that. I've corrected me. If anything, it's emboldened me ethics, though. It's really emboldened me argument. Like, my argument that I presented in that debate, after checking out some of the arguments he made, has made my argument even stronger. So in terms of ethics, I think I was probably a little bit wrong on Hegel but now I'm even more right in terms of animal ethics. So it's kind of worked out for the best, and I feel like I've grown from it. So at least I can say this about the infrared discussion. I feel like it was actually a productive conversation. He's a dick, and he's definitely wrong. Like he's way too overconfident about his position, which is really bad. Like it's definitely unfounded. But I did go, and because I was motivated to go and read Hegel's Philosophy of Nature in its entirety, pretty much. I now know. Just after that debate, I was like, I'm reading Hegel's Philosophy of Nature just angrily. Like I was just like, that's like I was like I'm not taking this bullshit. Anyway, it turns out I'm actually if anything, it instantiated me points. But I did benefit from it. But like I feel like it genuinely did help me improve. So like he's an asshole. But like if I hadn't have debated him and it hadn't have been about Hegel and we hadn't have taken that approach, I think I wouldn't have benefited so much from it. Yeah, I do think I need to incorporate maybe some more layperson arguments, like the sort of stuff they would see on like Earth and Ed and stuff like that. Like, because like I think it's really good. Yeah, I think Infrared would be a great person to talk to if his goal wasn't like, I'm going to destroy this person in a conversation. Because it's not that he's an idiot, it's that he's a horrible person, right? Like it's his attitude, not his it's his attitude, not his his intelligence. Yeah. His rhetoric assumes the person is stupid until proven. No, it's not even until proven wrong. That's the issue. Like his rhetoric is this person's stupid, so long he's in a debate. That's the whole point. He sees a debate as a form of like war and conquest. He needs to assert his dominance over this beta male that he's debating. It's really cringy, but at the same time, like it wins certain people over, right? Like those people who respond, well, people who can't think for themselves. And they need some sort of like community figure who will tell them what to think, how to feel, and what to do. It resonates with those people. And unfortunately, there's quite a few people who are just sheep and want to live lives as sheep. And a lot of the time, and especially when it's like he's defending their ideology, right? Like you've got people who just like they just sit on the sidelines and they'll just wave a banner like, yeah, go this ideology, like go my football team, and that's all he represents. 1 second, I'm just gonna like I don't even want to like talk about him too much because he's just guy needs like if he just gave himself like he needs a cold dose of reality to kind of just get him out of himself. I think that's what he kind of needs. He needs to just like get a bit of a slap. He needs his ego to take a blow, and he'll have a much better life because of it. Like it sounds like from the sounds of it, it sounds like he's destroying his own possibility of happiness with how he engages. Which is ironic. I think it's weird because it's like he takes a master-slave position in terms of debate when the whole point of what Hegel should teach you is that dispositionally you should be aiming towards a rational equality, if anything. All right, so 1 second. I'm probably going to have to quickly grab my phone and make a call. And then I'll be right back. Guys. I'll put the nice music on for you, though. Because I care. Yeah, guys, sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed the piano, though. So I'm going to stay on for about another 10, 15 minutes, answering any questions in chat if you have them. Just let us know, and I'll do my best to answer. But I hope you're enjoying these streams. As I said, I'm going to keep doing them, trying to help the animals and stuff. I think it's a pretty good way. I've also, I also had a patron ask for more, what's it called, like street interviews. So I'm going to do some more of them. I've just got to get me second dose of vaccine yet because I haven't got that. And then once I've gotten me second dose, then I'll go and do street interviews. Beautiful music. Yeah, thanks. I'm not that I played it. I like that as well. It's a really nice playlist. Oh, hey, Foot Soldier, how you doing? Will I be voting for Larry Elder? Being vegan and living in the UK is no excuse. For some reason, I think that it is an excuse. Oh. What kind of locations make for the best street interviews? Either events or the universities, I would say. I'm planning on going to universities. Mostly I'm gonna try and camp out of every single philosophy department in this country. I'm just gonna go to every single philosophy. The thing is, right, like if you actually, like, weirdly, right, I would have thought if I'm a public-ish figure, right, like I've got enough of an audience to justify people like engaging with us, right? So if I approach a university department, a lot of the philosophers they're not interested in debating and stuff, which I find so strange. I think Wittgenstein described a philosopher who doesn't debate as a boxer who doesn't box. A boxer who would never enter as a fight. It's just it really is just like why aren't you debating? That's just so strange. I don't think it's like cowardice. I think that a lot of the time it's either like because all British philosophy is incredibly incredibly written, so like their expertise is usually in writing. And I think that's I think that like I'm not gonna lie, I think that you don't really have something until you can either like I think that we'll all have our skills in terms of whether our ability to speak and our ability to write. That's fair enough. If you're not a good public speaker but you're a great writer, that's fine. I understand that. But then you should meet the debate in written terms. So like if you can either write a speech, or if let's say you don't want to do that, you can write on the topic, right? And open yourself up to critical discourse. So yeah, but I don't know. It's an actual pain to try and get philosophers to engage. And these people will be writing for anthropocentrism. Like I actually approached a university a while ago, and I just got a reply. I won't say which one. I got a reply with like, well, what's in it for us? And I just thought like, well, this is ridiculous. The average article is read by 14 people, right? The average university article is read by 14 people. If you get a couple of thousand citations on a university article, you are doing really well. And so the exposure that a public forum can give compared to an academic setting is insane. Why would you not? Like, it's more like, what's in it for me? Like, what have you got to offer? I've got an audience. What have you got? All right, you got a philosophy PhD. That's great. That is something I'm looking for. I'm looking to debate that. But in terms of like, I can find somebody else to debate. You're not going to find somebody else to give you public exposure. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like they're waiting for people to come along and just like, oh, well, we don't want to debate you. We just want to accept what you say and interview you. You know, like, and so they're just waiting to be interviewed, but they're not really given any sort of, or maybe they're waiting for to write what's it like, newspaper articles or something. As a non-vegan, I don't find your arguments compelling, but you seem like a genuinely nice person. Well, thank you, Renee. Although, if you ever do want to debate veganism, let us know. I think I had some questions that I missed by accident. Do you know any good panpsychists? I don't actually know. Actually, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Sorry about that. How do you respond to non-cognitivism? Depends on the form. Excuse me. I think that non-cognitivism usually entails a metaphysical rejection of, well, in terms of meaning, entails a rejection of a form of objectivism, right? Because, or at least a term, or at least, yeah, like it requires I think a lot of the time it requires the explanation of why what I'm expressing doesn't obtain reality, and why it's only an expression or an emotional expression. Because you can say like it's an emotional expression and it has belief. That's fine. I would agree. To be honest, I think that when I say something, I'm expressing like a lot of the time frustration, but I'm expressing an emotional state. Like it's about the mood I'm in. I think we always find ourselves in a mood, and I do think that we express our dispositional states. But then you'd have to also argue that the argument or the words I'm using does not obtain truth. You know, it's not truth apt. And I usually try to engage in those arguments, like why. So why do you believe that, like either moral statements or like why moral statements can't be propositions, right? And I think that is probably that's really where I argue against non-cognitivists. And it depends on what argument they take. Usually I find that the most popular argument is error theory. And I think that's actually really quite easy to argue against, because a lot of the time it tries to understand a word like good as a noun rather than like an adverb. And I usually pull them up for that. Like, no, good is a judgment in relation to an object and to a relationship within reality in terms of a function, not a noun. And then I can point towards like how it's not metaphysically queer. And I also think I hate the term metaphysical queerness. I think that's just so unbelievably unphilosophical, but whatever. And then logical positivism, sometimes, that's just terrible. I don't know who anyone who argues for logical positivism these days. Like verificationism or something. So yeah, it depends. It really does depend. So I can't give you like a specific way of arguing against non-cognitivists. Ask them why I should reject cognitivism, right? Because that's what non-cognitivism really has to be. It has to be a negative. It's defined by saying like, oh, well, no, our statements in terms of science, they're cognitive, but our ethical statements are non-cognitive. So ask them why that's the case. And if they don't tell you, say that they're special pleading. Yeah, there is a problem, Akami, with gatekeeping of knowledge. There is a real problem with how universities do gatekeep knowledge. I really think that it's not just universities, because it's open to the public now. You can do the research yourself, but it's the expertise that's lacking, right? Like, it's the fact that if I hadn't have went to university, I wouldn't have been exposed to so many great philosophers. I wouldn't have had lectures on these philosophers. I wouldn't have had an introduction to philosophy as a whole. So like me research itself and the way I research has been structured by university in a way which is meaningfully better. Which is why when I run the course, I think you can gain a lot from it. So you can go and do the research yourself, you know. But like if you buy the course, then I'm going to save you a considerable amount of time and energy. And I'm also going to tell you things that you would maybe miss, right? In terms of, and also help your learning process going on. Like I'll give you recommendations in terms of reading and stuff. Although I still need to write me reading recommendations for the course. But this is the thing. Like I think that like that's invaluable expertise, right? It's like it's wisdom almost, right? Now to gatekeep that seems unbelievably unbelievably negative for society, especially when it's something so univocal or universally valuable as philosophy. It applies to, and critical thinking, it applies to everything you do. It's not like that. It's not like learning a specific skill. It's a very general skill. Philosophy is such a broad subject. It applies to whether you're doing science or whether you're doing art or whether you're doing anything, any sort of engagement in your life. There is a philosophy in that, and so it's so strange to think that it's so unbelievably esoteric and detached from the general public. Do I believe that people are morally obligated to not eat honey, and could you explain why or why not? Yeah, absolutely. I think that we are morally obligated to not eat honey because it's damaging to bees, and bees are sentient creatures. I also think that it's damaging for our environment. And rather than me give a long-winded explanation of that, I'll give you a great video to watch. Check out Earthling Ed's video on honey, why vegans don't eat honey. It's brilliant. It's better than any explanation I could give. I can't say your name, I know that you're named after a philosopher, and I still can't say it. If you are vegan, you should be consuming sauerkraut, ideally raw, for probiotics. If not, consider taking K2 vitamin supplement. Well, you can get K2, you can get K1, which you convert to K2, right? Like you don't actually need K2, and you get that from leafy greens. You can take a K2 supplement if you want, so that you use your D3 and your calcium in a way that, or you deposit your calcium in a way that it's efficient. But you can get K1 from dark leafy greens, right? And but if you want to take sauerkraut, you absolutely can. It's really good for you. Yeah, man. You're right in saying that K2 is really good for your bone health. if that's what you're gonna. Akami, I probably wouldn't say it's appropriate in the labor of other beings, because it depends on how we define labor. But don't use other beings as a means to an end. I would say. I think that when we talk about labor, it has this kind of existential quality, which is why an individual can be alienated from that labor. It's not simply work done; it's the action, the act of producing a product, or the act of changing the world in terms of some sort of maybe means ends relationship. I'm not sure whether it does contain an existential quality, but I need to kind of work on that. But I'm kind of on the fence. But I certainly think that you're using an individual as a means to an end when you take something which is advantageous for their life from them, and you exploit them and you kill them and you do all this horrible stuff to them. Does the principle of explosion apply to error theorists when they believe that two contradicting moral statements are false? Well, this is the thing. This is so error theorists don't this is the thing. People, misunderstand error theory, and there's a lot of people who've made this this mistake before, and I think Mackie even makes this mistake, to be entirely honest with you, and he came up with it. But so an error theorist, if they're being right, if you're saying something is not truth apt, it actually negates the possibility of it being false, because falsity implies the possibility of being truthful. So you want to say that, because like, for something to be false, there had to exist the possibility of it actually obtaining truth value, right? It is actually untrue. This is untrue. This is always false. When you want to say, what an error theorist will typically say is actually this statement is untrue. And there's a distinction. Well, actually, they don't typically say this. A lot of the time, they say false, but they're wrong. They should be saying this is untrue. And that kind of alleviates a lot of the problems in terms of ontology, in terms of the epistemology, rather. I had this conversation, I think, with Dave. I was like, Dave, I said it to him. I was like saying, I think we both said it to each other at different points, and we both agree that there is definitely no way that an error theorist should be saying false. I mean, unless I think that, yeah, I think because it applies, because the argument is that it cannot obtain truth value in any sense, and a truth value can be positive or negative. Oh, thank you, Goat is here. I appreciate it. The university libraries are really great. I will say that. Even better, I've got Pelago now. I don't know if you've seen the adverts for it, like the online university library, because it's kind of cool. And I've also got Speechify, but you can't use them together, and that's really annoying us. So I can't anyway. But I really miss university libraries. Going to them. I haven't been to a university library where I've been able to sit down, because I don't live anywhere near the university that I can actually access the library. And the little university library next to me won't let us in anymore because of COVID. So, free universal education. I completely agree, Akami. What do you think of the argument about wild animal suffering is much more urgent ethical issue than animals we eat? I think that's misunderstanding of the ethical obligations that we have. We have an obligation not to just suffering simpliciter, but our own actions. We are obliged to take responsibility for ourselves before we try to engage in positive behaviors. We must stop interfering in the subjectivity of another before we start. Look at it like this: you're obliged more to not. You're more obliged to not stab one person than you are to help two other people, from being stabbed, because you are responsible for your actions and the consequences of your actions. So normatively, if everyone, even on a consequentialist basis, if everyone took responsibility for their own actions and didn't stab people, we would have less stabbings than if everyone stabbed someone but also tried to help other people not be stabbed. So it's kind of obvious in that respect. But also, I would say that, your obligations are institutionally derived from this point of respecting consequences and the universal value to the greatest overall possible degree. So, respect your institutional obligations, which is don't break the law and stuff like that. And I think that the law is negative for this point. It's of negative duties. Do not, thou shalt, almost thou shalt not, rather than a positive obligation. Because before we start thinking about perpetuating, good, we need to start thinking about causing the harm. What is the best way to learn metaethics if you have no almost experience at all? You can get introductions to metaethics. I'd probably recommend there's the Oxford companion to metaethics and stuff. And but I mean, it depends. Metaethics is one of those things where it's understanding metaethics you'll probably find a lot of analytic explanations of metaethics. I'd say just read ethics, right? Like pick up something like Philosophy, the Classic Readings, if you can find it. Someone said they found it on. Someone sent us a screenshot of them finding it on eBay for $10. The jammy bastards. Get that. Absolute bargain if you can. Get something like that, and it has an ethics section. Just read ethics. I recommend that you'll pick up metaethics better that way, because you'll see how the kind of divide between metaethics, ethics, like normative ethics and applied ethics, really isn't a divide. I hate when people think that normative ethics is separate from metaethics, in the sense that you can have a normative theory. So you have all of these error theorists, right? Like J.L. Mackie seems to think that you can be an error theorist and then also have a normative theory which makes any sense. So let's say error theory is so you would be saying, when you talk about, when you say something is good, if I was to say X is good, that statement would always be untrue. So the word good can never actually obtain any meaning. It can never actually have coherency, right? And so when I'm going into a discussion with someone and they say the word, what I'm trying to, if I'm talking about normative ethics, I'm trying to maximize the best outcome or a good outcome for everyone in terms of normative ethics. And I say, well, what do you mean by good? But what they mean is something that could be replaced with the word, I don't know, let's just let's go for something was it like Rick and Morty, like wubba lubba dub dub or something. So when they say what I'm trying to maximize is wubba lubba dub dub for everyone. And so if we engage in these behaviors, everyone will have a better wubba lubba dub dub, or everyone will wubba lubba dub dub more. And so we should all wubba lubba dub dub. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'd be like, this is absolutely insane. I have no idea what you're talking about. So trying to understand the meanings behind words is metaethics. In terms of words of good, bad, right, and wrong, right? But if you say that there is no meaning behind these words are meaningless, right? They're actually never obtained truth value, or incapable of truth value, or that words are. You may be able to argue that they're respective of a certain institutional conception of meaning, and we could get into all of that. But a lot of the time, I just think that it's absolute nonsense. It seems to be, I'm trying to maximize something which doesn't exist, is what you're saying. I'm trying to maximize something which cannot exist. Anyway. I'm going to have to bounce in a second, guys. So, yeah. Well, Gunther, then you should go vegan. And it's not about being morally superior, it's being rational or irrational. I think vegans are rational in that respect and not irrational. So if you genuinely think that it's the right thing to do, then go vegan, man. You got classical readings for £18 on eBay, and the ethics section on its own is out there for a few quid. If you can get, even the ethics section on its own, it's really great. Yeah, Renee, just DM us. You can always talk to us on another stream. So, guys, I'm going to bounce. Thank you all for watching the stream. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And check out my course, An Introduction to Western Philosophy. I'm putting new lectures up soon on the epistemology section. Already got the metaphysics section up now. And already got the Plato epistemology section lecture up. So we've got some more coming there. And, consider donating to support the channel in this work. And, thank you very much. And I hope you all have a lovely night. As always,